Hey guys, tonight we're floating into whispers and wet cobblestones, following the Rhone's current through merchant secrets best swallowed with wine. Fair warning, if you're the type who jumps at creaky floorboards, you might want to sleep with the lights on after this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your hometown and current moon phase. We've got listeners from 19 time zones tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto moss-slick planks in Lyon's old port, boots sinking into grooves worn by 6 generations of silk traders. Fact check, this very dock shipped 40,000 pounds of satin annually back when Shakespeare was scribbling sonnets. The cargo manifest, mostly fabric, partially bribes for river inspectors. Lanterns sway like drunken pendulums overhead, casting honeyed light on barrels labeled Muscat and Regret. A deckhand grunts as he shifts crates, their contents clinking like a smuggler's loose change. The captain leans against a coiled rope, face half shadowed by his tricorn hat. Mind the gap between dock and deck, he mutters. Spirits rise through wet wood after midnight. His voice cracks on spirits, a telltale sign he's not talking about the wine stash. Rumor has it his last first mate vanished near Vienne, left only a hatpin stuck in the mast. You pretend not to notice his trembling hands. A cold breeze carries the scent of rotting apples from some unseen crate. Your fingers brush the ship's railing, splinters catching on your sleeve like tiny pleas to stay ashore. The crew avoids eye contact, polishing the same cleats repeatedly. Only the ship's cat seems at ease licking its paws beside a barrel marked salt. Probably not salt. Lost a shipment near Tournon last autumn, the captain confesses to the dark. Silk so fine it could have clothed a queen's ghost. Historians still argue whether Lyon's silk guilds dabbled in laundering papal gold. But we'll save that conspiracy for Avignon. The missing crate's manifest appears at your feet, waterlogged parchment, listing 32 bolts, crimson, the last entry. 1 passenger, unnamed. Footsteps creak above, bare feet pacing the quarterdeck. When you look up, nothing but rigging slicing the moonlight. The cat hisses at empty air. That's just Marcel, lies a crewman too quickly, our night watchman. His chuckle dies when the ship's bell rings itself, 3 sharp dings that send the captain crossing his chest. You're shown to a cabin smaller than a coffin narrow cot, pewter cup, and a candle that burns blue if you tilt your head. A ledger lies open on the desk, pages filled with wine stains and paranoid scribbles. Fluctuat nec mergitur loops the margin Paris motto about weathering storms. Below it, est furtum mergit in shaky script. But theft drowns. The engine rumbles to life, or maybe it's the river growling beneath the hull. Through your porthole, Lyon's silhouette shrinks, its Renaissance rooftops chewing the horizon like stone teeth. The captain's voice drifts down the corridor, arguing with someone about payment in kind. A woman laughs, but the crew swears no women boarded. You find a silk scrap caught in your door jamb, crimson threads gleaming like fresh wounds. The deckhand claims it's from last year's lost shipment. When you hold it to the light, the color shifts to bruise purple. Don't unspool that, he warns. Story goes the dye came from, let's say, unlicensed Mediterranean mollusks. His whisper hangs between you, a challenge to ask more. You pocket the fabric. Bells toll 2 a.m. from some distant church, or maybe the drowned abbey they'll deny exists tomorrow. The ship sways as night swallows the banks, turning willows into skeletal hands. Water slaps the hull in irregular bursts like something keeping pace below. The cat now sits at your doorway, watching you with mismatched eyes. Crewmen pass by muttering about La Tarasque, that mythical river beast said to snack on lyres. As sleep finally tugs at your eyelids, the captain's journal falls open to today's entry. New passenger brought the damp with them. Marcel's bell hasn't stopped since Marseille. But here's the thing, you boarded in Lyon. The last line bleeds into the paper's grain, 33 bolts now. Somewhere above deck, a woman hums a lullaby in Occitan. The language died out centuries ago mostly. The Sean's breath turns to fog, clotting the air like cold soup left too long in the bowl. Lanterns from the boat carve weak, halos through the gloom, each beam catching wisps that twist into faces before dissolving. You lean on the rail, your sleeves damp with phantom dew, as the captain's earlier warnings about river spirits coil in your skull like eels. A linen trader sidles up, her cloak stitched with moth-eaten crests, and offers a flask smelling of burnt honey. They say whole hamlets gutted themselves to rot here, she murmurs, nodding toward the shore. Plague took most sure, but the rest vanished between supper and second helpings. Historians still argue whether the Black Death skipped these stretches, or if something sharper emptied the larders. The fog parts just enough to show skeletal barns dotting the hills, their rooftops sagging under nests the size of ox carts. You spot a rusted bell swaying in a churchless belfry, its clapper crusted with decades of swallow droppings. The trader chuckles at your stare. Tourists always ask for ghosts. Try the bread. She produces a rock-hard loaf from her satchel, its crust etched with symbols even the Vatican's archivists might struggle to name. Found it in a root cellar near Tournus. Oven was still warm, in a manner of speaking. Her wink suggests jokes about cursed carbohydrates are customary here. You decline the snack politely. Shapes loom in the mist, the outlines of tables set with tarnished silver and bowls of figs petrified into stone. A child's doll perches on one bench, its flaxen hair blooming lichen, as if the whole village stood mid-meal and stepped away. The trader whispers that locals still hear dishware rattling in the dirt. You almost miss her next words over the creak of the ship. Third Wednesday of each month, they say The fog thins enough to see smoke rising. Chimneys puffing, stew pots simmering. No bodies, just the work of hands that aren't there. She pockets the haunted bread, her voice dropping. Tried sending a dog in once, came back leaner. Older, didn't bark in French anymore. The current slows where two rivers marry, water churning like oil beneath the hull. You spy moss-caked stairs leading to nothing, a shoreline that retreated centuries ago, leaving the steps to dangle above the mud. The trader follows your gaze. Auction records mention a mayor's wife buying 7 barrels of salt 5 days before the vanishings. For pickling or preservation. Night deepens. The crew lights more lanterns, their flames battling the fog's endless cough. You swear the mist thickens where shadows gather, forming crude tables, shadow guests raising cups to lips they don't possess. The trader has vanished now, leaving only her flask on the rail, its contents evaporating into the damp air. Ahead, the silhouette of a granary tilts drunkenly over the water, its door ajar. Inside, darkness. Always darkness, but the breeze carries notes of a lute string snapping, a spoon clinking against ceramic, a sigh that isn't yours. You touch the rail expecting frost, but find it fever warm. The Seine hums a lullaby older than France herself. Sleep tugs at your bones, a dangerous impulse here. You count village ghosts to stay awake. 1, a baker mid-need. 3, a blacksmith's apprentice. 7, a bridal party waist-deep in wildflowers. The numbers blur. By 17, your eyelids surrender, but not before glimpsing lights in the hollows between trees. Not lanterns, not fireflies. Something setting a table no living soul will taste. The fog thins to reveal a bend where the Rhône narrows, its banks choked with reeds that hiss like steamed silk. Oars dip quieter here, the crew's usual banter swallowed by the sticky hush. Your spiced wine sloshes, not from waves, the mug itself shivering like a spooked animal. A deckhand mouths cobbler's fairy without sound, pointing to waterlogged boots nailed along the gunwale. This bend once held a toll station. Crumbling ledgers prove traders paid in leather soles instead of coins. Historians still argue whether it was charity for roadside beggars or tribute to something hungrier. The current slows, each stroke of the oars now fighting jellied water that clings to the hull. You half expect the riverbed to rise and demand a toll. A shoe surfaces beside the boat, left foot, moon-bleached leather, and laces knotted 13 times. Then another, and another. A deckhand curses as the oars freeze mid-dip, quivering like compass needles denied north. The captain mutters a dirge about old debts while unlacing his boots. Spent 5 years studying Rhône trade routes, whispers a scholar clutching a wax-sealed tome to his chest. Never found records of real cobblers here. Just complaints about missing footwear. His laugh cracks halfway, a dry twig underfoot. The crew tosses shoes overboard, sneakers, sandals, one patched ballet slipper. Each sinks without a splash. The scholar nudges you. In the 1600s, pilgrims swore the ferryman's ghost would only accept left shoes. Can't imagine why. Podiatry joke. Divine irony. His chuckle dies as your own left boot tugs toward the rail, laces snake-like. You kick it off before it leaps. Moonlight paints a silhouette on the shore, a hunched figure, hammering mist into the shape of soles. No face, just the slump of shoulders worn by lifetimes of bad posture. The captain warns against eye contact. He'll tally your arches, your bunions, the calluses you've earned. Your bare foot meets the deck gritty with pollen that isn't pollen. Ground walnut shells, the old trick for destinking boots. The scholar scribbles notes, quill scratching like mouse feet on parchment. 18th century inventories mention a cobbler who drowned retrieving a nobleman's dropped galosh, but folktales claim he sewed soles for river nymphs, got dragged under for overcharging. The phantom raises a spectral, all-stabbing air where a shoe should be. The river exhales, a stench of mildew and beeswax. Crewmen murmur about last year's cook, a man who tossed both boots and woke with birch saplings sprouting from his toes. You fumble for a souvenir coin in your pocket, find a hole instead. The scholar shrugs. The Oral Historical Society once offered a reward for proof of the ghost. They got left boots. So many left boots. He eyes your sock. Cotton blend. Brave choice. The figure fades, taking the cold with it. Oars regain their rhythm, water chuckling at some private joke. The captain returns barefoot, toenails painted with chipped vermilion. Souvenir from Marseille, he grunts, squinting at the horizon. Downriver, a lantern flares on shore. A cobbler's stall glows empty, but for 3 left boots arranged in a triangle. The crew rows faster. Your remaining foot throbs a phantom ache where the right shoe should pinch. Sleep claws at you again, thick as resin. You count missing footwear to stay awake. But the river hums a lullaby stitched from creaking leather and whispered bargains. Dawn finds your pocket, weighted by unfamiliar lint, a tangle of waxed thread, and one iron hobnail. The scholar's tome lies open to a sketch of a shoe no human foot could wear, the sole curved like a sickle. He snores nearby, socks mismatched, and toes twitching. You consider lingering questions, why left shoes, who polishes the ghost's tools. But the Rhône offers only ripples, and somewhere beneath the silt, a mountain of souls waiting to walk on water. Dawn's first blush stains the river ochre. You rub sleep grit from eyes and find your palms smeared with walnut dust. The crew's swapped shoes for makeshift sandals, sails, stitched from ledger pages, crackle in the breeze. Vienne's ruins crowd the eastern bank, crumbled market arches, half swallowed by ivy. A merchant in a moth-eaten toga waves, his shadow stretching across the water like a road no one walks. You step onto docks warped by centuries of flood rot. The air smells of burnt honey and ledger ink. Stone stalls sag under the weight of phantom goods, glimpses of bronze scales hollow clay pots, a basket of figs fossilized into onyx. Historians still argue whether Vienne's market fell to plague or a curse. City records end mid-sentence. In 1348, a velvet-draped vendor offers you silver coins stamped with long-dead emperors. Best for buying silence, he croaks, tapping a finger where his left ear should be. Your boothiel kicks something metallic, a die carved from boar tusk. Gambling tools were outlawed here after a 3rd century riot over loaded dice. You pocket it, feeling the ghost of old cheaters' luck prickle your fingertips. Across the square, a weaver displays bolts of fabric that shimmer, then vanish when you blink. Shadow wool, she explains, spinning an empty spindle, sheared from sheep that graze crossroads at moonrise. Her laugh echoes, a brittle sound. A child's clay doll topples from a ledge, shattering into dust that swirls into the shape of a snarling wolf. No one reacts. The fig vendor reappears, this time missing his hat. His basket overflows with fruit, so plump it pulses. Don't, hisses the velvet merchant, now suddenly beside you. Vendors, without hats, haven't paid the mirror tax. The words slither into your collar cold as a keyhole draft. You trace a fresco flaking from a wall, the pigment still sticky. It depicts laborers hauling amphorae up the Rhone's bends. Mainstream historians confirm Vienne shipped more garum fish sauce than any Gallic port. Its stench once carried 40 leagues downwind. A drunk Roman centurion's graffiti survives nearby. Marcus Licinius drank here and regretted the oysters. The weaver tugs your sleeve, her loom now stacked with invisible thread. They're watching, she murmurs, nodding toward a stall where bronze mirrors hang askew. Your reflection shows someone else standing behind you, a woman clutching a fig, stemmed like an hourglass. When you turn, there's only a spill of sunlight. A negotiation erupts 3 stalls down, 2 spectral merchants, haggling over spices that crumble to ash mid-bargain. Their voices layer, Latin over Occitan, over a language that clicks like reeds in a storm. You catch the phrase blood-ripe, and 3 kings ransom before they disintegrate, leaving a scorch mark shaped like a clenched fist. The hatless fig vendor blocks your path, fruit splitting open to reveal hollow cores. A gift, he insists, juice dripping black as printer's ink. The velvet merchant materializes, flipping a coin into the basket. Figs shrivel instantly. Never trust produce sold below eye level, he mutters, steering you toward an alley strewn with poultry bones. Midday light bleaches the square, ghosts thin to translucent wisps. Your shadow stretches unnaturally, kneeling when you stand, scratching when you don't itch. At the market's edge, a dye seller stirs a vat of indigo, color of drowned skies. He boasts dipping a rag that emerges bone white. In the 1800s, locals believed the river's blue silt cured gout. Journals describe noblemen burying their feet in it until one suffocated under quicksand-like mud. You find a ledger page nailed to a rotting post. The ink swims, forming words that dissolve like sugar in rain. 7 barrels of regrets, 3 bolts of moth-eaten futures, 1 cask of unanswered letters. A breeze snatches the paper. It soars toward the river, flapping like a startled gull. As dusk gnaws the horizon, the market revives, shadows pooling into human shapes, barter ringing through dead languages. You retreat to the boat, your pockets heavier with phantom grime. The captain mutters about passengers who linger too long among unlicensed sellers. His new sandals squeak, soles cut from 18th century tax records. Nightfall brings a chorus of splashes, merchants dumping unsold wares into the Rhône. A fig bobs past, its skin split to reveal teeth instead of seeds. You count 9 before sleep takes you, each one whispering a price you can't quite hear. Dawn bleeds through mist, the river's surface, dimpled with rising bubbles that hum. You dip a hand in, cold seeping up your wrist, and feel the water vibrate like a plucked harp string. Below, shadows shift, not fish, but hooded shapes circling a spire of drowned stone. Historians confirm a 12th century abbey sank here during floods, though locals still whisper the monks sealed themselves underwater to avoid paying taxes. A deckhand throws breadcrumbs. They sink sideways, forming musical notes visible for 3 heartbeats. The captain cuts the engine, wood groans, as currents nudge you toward the ruins. Never anchor here, he mutters, polishing a brass spyglass with his sleeve. Last crew that tried well, their hooks came up twisted like corkscrews. His laugh lacks humor, teeth glinting like chipped porcelain. You lean over the rail, ripples coalesce into faces mouthing Latin psalms. Their voices reach you as clicks and groans, the river translating sins into pressure. Something bronze glints 40 feet down a bell, half buried in silt. Its surface crawls with barnacle-crusted reliefs, damned souls climbing their own spines. Mainstream texts say the abbey's bell was melted for cannonballs in 1562. But here it sits, green with algae. A bubble bursts at your elbow, releasing a waft of incense and wet wool. Your fingers itch, remembering the fossilized figs from Vienne's cursed market. A merchant in a patched cassock sidles up, offering corked vials of bottled chance. His fingernails hold river muck centuries deep. 4 deniers. He wheedles, shaking a vial where murky water swirls counterclockwise. Guaranteed to cure warts or summon rain depends on the moon. Historians still argue whether the monks brewed hallucinogenic lichen wine. A theory fueled by cellar carvings of 6-eyed saints. The bell tolls, a single muffled bong that travels through your boots to your molars. Crewmen cross themselves with hands wide apart, a ward against splash ghosts. You press an ear to the deck. The sound clarifies into a word. Meretrix. Water slaps the hull in agreement. Sunlight dapples the surface, illuminating a path of lazy spirals. You trail your fingers through them. The pattern mirrors the Loire Valley's ancient labyrinth mosaics. A crew boy whispers that touching the water here erases minor sins. When he shows his palms, they're scrubbed raw. Your own hand emerges, ink-stained, memories of Vienne's ledger sales clinging like guilty sweat. The merchant uncorks a vial, chants spill out, high and reedy. They taste of burnt parchment. Your buying regrets, friend, snorts the captain, snatching the vial. He pours it overboard, the river hisses, where liquid hits, vomiting up a dead eel with human molars. Shadows lengthen, monastic bubbles now glow faintly blue. You blink, and for 3 breaths, see the abbey hole, stained glass scattering rubies of light across the riverbed. A fish darts through a phantom, rose window, its scales momentarily gilded. The captain grips your elbow. Don't stare, he growls. That one's a latecomer, baited pilgrims in with fables about a treasure bell. His breath smells of sour wine, and something older, maybe ship rot, maybe lying. Currents tug the vessel backward, no matter how the pilot spins the wheel. The merchant stuffs unsold vials into a sack. Time pays its debts, he quips, voice trembling. Crewmen toss coins overboard, their bronze discs wobble downward, pulled toward the bell, as if magnetized. You contribute the boar-tusk die from Vienne. It sinks faster than iron. Darkness comes early here. Lantern light fractures on churning water, each flicker showing a different century. 13th century fishermen hauling nets of bloated books. 16th century divers strapped with oblivion wine flasks. You huddle under a cloak that reeks of mildew and myrrh. The captain recounts how, in 1897, a Parisian novelist, Dove here, emerged screaming about chorus-mad salamanders. His journal sold well, until the ink washed away during a downpour. Midnight slips its leash. The bell tolls again, clapper moving despite no visible rope. Ripples form a map of branching veins, or maybe rivers within rivers. You drop a crumb from breakfast, it spirals down, pausing twice, as if nibbled by invisible mouths. A crewman swears the abbey's cook still stocks phantom carp. Those who hear their splashes die hungry. Dawn finds the boat miles downstream, though no one recalls unmooring. Your left boot squelches inside, a spiral shell glowing faintly. It whispers 2 notes when held to your ear, one for the abbey's lost choir, and one that might be the Danube laughing. The shell's whisper fades as Avignon's walls loom, pockmarked limestone glowing bone-white under a hesitant moon. You dock beneath the Pont Saint-Bénézet, its 4 surviving arches crouching like a spider missing legs. Mainstream guides will drone about this bridge's collapse during a 17th century flood. But the wine cellar hawking cherry-red Venter de Veuve at the quay has better gossip. They're listening, he mutters, nodding toward the bridge's guardians. Gargoyles line the ramparts, not the usual demons, but stone-faced nobles with cupped ears and elongated necks. Their mouths hang open, frozen mid-whisper. You smirk until a breeze ruffles your collar, and you swear it carries your name in medieval Occitan. The wine cellar pours you a clay cup liquid so dark it eats the moonlight. Drunk or sober, they'll taste your secrets, he warns. Historians still argue whether the bridge's fourth arch fell from ice or infidelity. But locals insist the stones themselves grew weary of scandals. A drunkard stumbles past his shadow, stretches 20 feet up the wall, and a gargoyle's head swivels imperceptibly to follow. You glance at the missing arches, half expecting to see phantom lovers clinging to the void. The wine cellar claims workers found hollows stuffed with skeletons during a 1920s repair, hands fused around each other's ribcage, he says, crushing a dried fig between ink-stained fingers. No skulls, though, makes you wonder what's doing the biting upstairs. Mist rises from the Rhône, curling around the gargoyles' throats. You touch the bridge's mossy flank, and the stone feels warmer than it should. A chorus of muffled giggles vibrates through your molars, echoes of bartered sins and pilfered kisses. The wine cellar nods. Good A. Petrified gossip's the best vintage. As midnight nears, he leads you to a crevice where mortar never quite set. Press an ear here, he insists. It's how the bored archbishop's wife eavesdropped on fishmonger trysts. You comply and flinch as a rapid-fire clatter assaults your eardrum. Not voices, knuckle bones. Someone's playing hazard in a vault that hasn't existed since the papal schism. A flash of silk catches your eye, a figure vanishing into the fourth arch's absence. You give chase, but your boots stick to cobble slick with something thicker than dew. The wine cellar's laughter follows. Mind the glue maker's daughter. He crows. They say her shadow still haunts the lime pits, collects suitors' buttons for her ghostly bodice. Moonlight fractures. For 3 heartbeats, the bridge stands whole, its full 12 arches spanning the river like a rat king's spine. Lanterns blaze along the parapet, each flame a different century's hue. A gondola glides beneath you, its cargo of masked revelers singing off-key hymns. Their oars pass through a submerged skeleton, picking its teeth with a fishbone. Dawn threatens. The gargoyles' faces soften molten wax, reverting to stone. You find a fleur-de-lis carved behind your ear, but perhaps it was always there. The wine cellar packs his amphory. Come back when the mistral blows, he whispers. That's when the bridge sings what it swallowed. Your pocket feels heavy. A stone button nestles against the Danube's shell, engraved with 2 entwined CS. From the river, a woman's laugh ripples, followed by the crisp snap of a bodice clasping empty air. The button warms against your palm as the Rhône widens, its current grown lazy with secrets. Moonlight dusts the western shore, where 50-odd sacks glisten like stolen frost. You lean over the rail, salt crusts your tongue before you spot the source. A deckhand materializes beside you, humming a tune that prickles your neck hairs. Anton sold his shadow for a sip of brine, he croons. His breath smells of pickled herring and regret. Those sacks, remnants of a 1789 salt heist, Gabel tax dodgers used this bend to offload contraband. Mainstream history Books claim smuggling, peaked under Louis XVI. But this guy insists the river itself hoards sodium chloride for winter. He nudges a rotting burlap sack with his boot. It exhales a century's worth of grudges. Or maybe that's just mold. Ever hear why sailors avoid licking mastwood? He asks. Before you can answer, he spits a brown glob overboard. Salt's the only widow that marries both sea and land. The wind shifts. For a heartbeat, the sacks seem to crawl, shuddering like cocoons about to hatch. A wet crack echoes from the shallows. The deckhand freezes mid-chuckle. His bones are singing, he murmurs. You follow his gaze. Ropes dangle from a gnarled oak, their frayed ends combing the water. Locals whisper these strands once hung salt-rusted cages, each holding a smuggler's left hand. Historians still argue whether the practice deterred theft or just fed the crows. The deckhand claims if you loop one around your wrist, you'll taste Anton's final moments, gunpowder and apricot jam. Something glints beneath the surface. Not fish, shards of a shattered demijohn. The deckhand pockets a cobalt blue fragment. Mare's tears, he explains. Old salt wives dumped here when husbands dissolved. You blink, and the water's suddenly thick with floating bottles, each corked with a lock of hair. A terracotta whistle trills from the shore. The sacks deflate, dead moths in reverse. The deckhand pales. That's the guardian, he hisses. Rides a bull made of tidal charts. You squint at the silhouette looming in the reeds, wide-brimmed hat, crook-like staff. Then fog swallows him whole. The deckhand presses a salt cube into your hand for the dreams and retreats below. You suck the mineral grit, and the world tilts. Suddenly, you're wading through a marsh where cattails ring like church bells. A figure kneels ahead Anton. His outline ripples like heat haze as he empties a sack into the Rhône. They think I drowned for a few sous, he rasps. Salt crystals bloom from his pores. But the river and we made a trade. His fingers crumble into the current, each grain hissing liberté as it dissolves. When you blink, you're back on deck, clutching a fistful of damp sand. Overhead, geese arrow south, their cries tuned to a minor key. The remaining sacks now resemble melted candle wax. A fish leaps, and for 3 heartbeats, wears Anton's face. The deckhand's ballad resumes, this time in a language that turns your teeth fuzzy. Dawn arrives with the stench of brined olives. You find a salt-crusted locket wedged in the railing inside, a portrait of a woman slowly eroding. Her eyes follow you as the guardian's whistle fades upstream, where 73 more sacks await the moon's kiss. The Rhône licks its chops. Somewhere downstream, a fisherman mends nets with threads spun from dried algae, and wonders why his knots keep dissolving before noon. The fisherman's dissolving knots marked the hours well. Now Arl shadow-striped lanes demand sharper timekeeping. You disembark where 3 sundials argue, each accusing the others of stolen minutes. A silk weaver named Clothilda yanks you into her stall, her hands flutter like caged sparrows. Walk at noon, she breathes, thrusting a cloak at your chest. But only if you were born under Gemini or desperate. The garment smells of crushed beetles, the same dye once bartered here for Roman gold. Mainstream historians itch to mention Arles was Caesar's pet colony, its streets aligned to catch midday sun for market scams. Clothelda swears sundials here tick backward during Libra season. You finger the cloak's hem, threads snagged with what might be powdered bone. 73 steps due west, she instructs, nodding at a sundial shaped like a wolf's jaw. At the 12th chime, vanish. A drunk lute player collapses against the stall. His instrument rasps a tune about a tailor who sewed his shadow into a bride's veil. Clothelda tosses a fig at his head. Ignore Marcel. He's still sour about the mule incident. You wait. Shadows pool like spilled ink. At 11:59, a bead of sweat carves a path down your spine. The wolf sundial's gnomon twitches, as if smelling blood. Step 73 lands you in a square where pigeons peck at mosaic stars. Noon light stabs downward. You swirl the cloak, and your shadow detaches. It lingers for 5 heartbeats, then scampers down an alley. Clothelda materializes beside a well, grinning. Follow, follow, she sings songs. Your rogue shadow leads you past bakeries, selling bread stamped with Templar crosses. Their crumbs allegedly spelling out bankruptcy notices. Historians still argue whether Arles sundials secretly aligned with old sewer tunnels or just drunk architects. The shadow pauses at a doorless tower. Inside, 27 mismatched clocks hang from goat sinews. Their hands jerk backward every time a fish gasps downstream. Clothelda presses a finger to her lips. Above, a velvet-draped balcony juts into nothingness, its railings strung with hair-thin wires. The sundial duke's old perch, she whispers. He'd toss coins to his reflection, then tax the river for theft. Your shadow scales the tower, melting into a crack where mortar weeps rust. Clothelda produces a thimble of vinegar. For the stench of paradox, she says, the air curdles with burnt parchment and wet dog. A ledger slaps onto the cobbles, its pages tally every step you've taken since Lyon. The numbers squirm. Marcel, the lute player, staggers around the corner, his instrument now missing 3 strings. They're watching through the gnomon holes. He slurs. Clothelda sighs. He's not wrong. She points to a sundial across the square, its bronze face pocked with nail-sized gaps. Something winks in the darkness behind them. The cloak grows heavy. You shrug it off, only to find the fabric now patterned with your own fingerprints. Clothelda nods. Happens to all first-timers. She unspools a ribbon from her sleeve, tongue poking in concentration. Gift from the Duke's mistress. She wove 'em to snare crow feathers mid-flight. A shutter bangs overhead. Your shadow reappears, trailing mud from a century you haven't lived yet. It slips the cloak back onto your shoulders, then dissolves into your shoes. Marcel belches a dissonant chord. Told you the veil dimension's leaky, he mutters. Clothilda leads you to a cellar where silk moths hum Gregorian chants. Their cocoons pulse like tiny lungs. Legend says master weavers here threaded looms with spider webs and regifted moonlight. She tosses a moth into the air. It combusts into blue flame. Also, don't pet the moths. Dusk ruffles the streets. Clothilda presses a handkerchief into your palm, embroidered with a sundial bleeding ink. For the next town, she says, they've got a bridge that gambles with pilgrims. You turn to ask about the shadow's mud, but she's gone. Only Marcel remains, plucking a single string. The note lingers, harmonizing with the distant screech of the fisherman's dissolving knots. Above, the wolf sundial's shadow stretches east. You swear it's grown fangs. The cloak itches. As you board the barge, a breadcrumb from the Templar loaf clings to your heel. It spells 3 runes in the dusk. Before you can look closer, a wave licks it into the current, where 89 more crumbs await their alphabet. Arl's sundials whisper behind you, recalibrating. Somewhere downstream, a cobbler's ghost files his teeth on a mooring chain and wonders why time smells of burnt moths. The river hiccups. A plump carp surfaces with Clothilda's face. It winks. You pull the cloak tighter. Your shadow stays put, but hums a tune suspiciously like Marcel's lost chords. The river's murmur deepens here, a guttural rhythm thrumming through the barge's timbers. You lean over the rail, silt swirls into shapes like charging beasts. Bronze glints in the murk, half-buried hooves larger than dinner plates. The captain spits. Bull vaults, he grumbles. Old kings sank 'em to appease the current. Guess how that worked out. A rowboat scrapes alongside, paddled by a woman with hair like frayed rope. Her right eye reflects the sky. The left shows the riverbed's bronze clutter. Lost something. She holds up a key crusted with river scum. Trade your reflection, and I'll show you where it's buried. Historians still argue, did these bronzes honor river gods or clear royal treasuries? You glance at the cloak. Its shadow twitches as if eavesdropping. The woman's boat lists, revealing clawed footprints burned into the hull. Last barter, she croons. Too many tourists keep their mirrors wrapped in velvet nowadays. Your shadow hums a warning, the tune frays at the edges. The woman's teeth gleam like wet pebbles. Don't trust her, hisses the ship's cat, a detail you'll question later, given you never saw a cat aboard. She snaps her fingers. The river exhales, blowing the cloak's hood back. You reek of moth ash and Clothilda's vinegar, she says. Little wonder your shadow hums. Her key clicks against a rusted locket inside. A portrait of Caesar's favorite bull, Victoricus. Mainstream texts call it the first bronze statue sunk to calm Rhône's temper. You peer into her left eye, see your reflection mouthing words you've never dared speak. The key grows warm. She cackles. Always easier to bargain with the parts people hide. The deal snaps into place. Your shadow gains a metallic sheen. Hers flickers with glimpses of your childhood bedroom. She tosses the key. It hits the deck, and the river erupts. Bronze bulls surge upward, their hollow bodies streaming weeds and eels. Their empty eye sockets track you as the barge lurches onward. The woman rows away, humming Marcel's tune backward. Your reflection waves from her pocket mirror, then sticks out its tongue. Underfoot, the key vibrates. It's cold, like something borrowed from winter. The captain eyes it. Better toss that gewgaw before a bull's hoof scrapes the hull, sparking green flame. He shrugs. Never mind, show free. Dusk stains the water sepia. Your shadow, now the color of tarnished gears, tugs toward the eastern bank. There, a boy grills fish on a brazier shaped like a bull's head. Special on lamprey, he calls. Caught 'em myself, mostly. The cloak's hem drips murky water. Each drop forms a tiny whirlpool. You step closer, see fish bones, spelling out VIXVIIIX in the silt. The woman's locket throbs. Victoricus's profile now faces backward. A bull bellows underwater. The sound rips holes in the river's surface. Through them, you glimpse inverted villages and Clothelda's stall being devoured by moths. The captain tosses an orange peel at the vision. Should have bargained for better eyes, he mutters. Your reflection's tongue remains out, stubborn as a barnacle. The key digs into your palm hungry. When you blink, the riverbed's bronze hooves are gone. Only silt ghosts remain dancing to Marcel's unfinished symphony. The barge rounds a bend, the air thickens with wet hay and regret. Your shadow peels itself off the deck, retching up a single bronze scale. It points southwest, toward a cliff where stone bulls guard nothing but bird nests. Night falls. The key sings a lullaby about a blacksmith who forged his echo into a bell. You tuck it under a coil of rope. As stars fracture the sky, the river whispers two words in Clothelda's voice. By better thread, your reflection winks from the moonlit water. When you lean closer, it holds up a sign. Next time, keep your shadow on a leash. The cloak snickers its sleeves, fraying into cobwebs. A bowl-shaped wave licks the hull, salt crusts your lips. You swear it tastes of Venice, though you've never been. The captain lights his pipe, with the green flame still clinging to the rail. Keys, cloaks, sundials, he sighs. Just river's way of knitting sweaters from our nonsense. You pocket the scale, it burns with the heat of hooves, galloping through deep silt. Somewhere downstream, the old woman's locket snaps shut, trapping your reflection's grin inside. The barge drifts on. Your shadow, now properly attached, flickers once, etching the number 17 into the mast. 17 what? Seasons, sins, seconds, until the next bad decision. The river doesn't say. It's too busy unraveling your bootlace. The river snags your unraveled bootlace, tugging it toward a crumbling stone tower. Rotting wheat fumes bloom through arrow slits, a reek straddling vinegar and decay. You cough, the air clings like a wet flour sack. Historians note this was once the Duke of Burgundy's emergency grain storehouse, stockpiled during the Great Famine of 1315. Textbooks claim he overestimated the crisis. The blackened timbers tell a different story. A rat scuttles across the gangplank, its fur matted with mildew. It pauses, sniffing your shadow's bronze tint. 17. It croaks voice like a rusted hinge. 3 more rodents follow, each reciting lines from the Duke's final edict. All grain to be quartered by toll of the East Bell. Their unison monotone suggests rehearsals. The cook emerges, wiping his knife on a sack embroidered with moth holes. "Don't feed him," he mutters. Last week, one quoted my granny's biscuit recipe back to me verbatim. His apron stains pulse like inkblot Rorschach's. You step onto a dock that squelches underfoot. The granary door groans, a toothless mouth exhaling spores. Inside, mountains of blighted wheat shift and sigh. Mainstream scholars insist the Duke's stores rotted from poor ventilation. Local gossip claims the grain turned toxic after he executed his steward over a single stolen loaf. A rat perches on a barrel, whiskers twitching. Article 9, it declaims, "Any peasant found hoarding seed shall you fling a moldy crust." The rodent catches it mid-sentence, then adds, "Thank you, kind sir," in flawless old French. Mildewed murals flank the staircase, depicting the Duke's banquets. Fungus has redrawn the scenes. Now, noblemen vomit jewels, and bread loaves devour servants. The cook snorts. Nature's a prickly art critic. Upstairs, a ledger lies open. Its pages sprout mushrooms, caped like tiny jesters. Historians still argue whether the Duke starved his people to control revolt, or because he believed the grain whispered treason. You trace a finger over an entry-dated year of our Lord 1317. The ink squirms away. A chorus of rodents chants from the rafters. Their ode to parsnip tariffs could make a tax collector weep. The cook shrugs. At least they're better bureaucrats than my ex-wife. Sunlight slants through a shattered window. Your shadow now sports bronze rat ears. The lead rodent nods approval. Amendment 12, it rasps. All reflective surfaces must. A cobweb smothers its snout mid-decree. You pocket a mildewed coin, the Duke's profile warped by rot. The cook warns it'll sour any drink within a league. Some claim these blight pennies cursed a Lyon tavern to serve only curdled milk for a decade. Outside, the barge crew hurls turnips at a rat parliament convening on the shore. No refunds, squeaks a rodent clutching a pebble like a gavel. Your shadow flicks its new ears, twitching in time with their squealed legislation. As dusk gnaws the horizon, the granary's top floor collapses, sending up a mushroom cloud of spores. The cook claims each puff contains the final breath of a starved peasant. You don't argue, though you exhale carefully for the next half hour. The lead rat slips you a scroll tied with hair. Unfurled, it reveals a recipe for acorn bread and a margin note detailing where the Duke hid his emergency wine stash. The cook lights the scroll for kindling. That's the problem with bureaucrats, always skipping to the dessert chapter. Midnight finds you scrubbing rat verses off the deck with vinegar. The crew bets on which rodent will become chancellor. Your shadow hums the tariff ode badly while the river licks mold from the hull. A single blight penny rolls from your pocket, pulsing faintly. You consider tossing it overboard until the captain mentions it might buy passage through the next lock. Greed sticks to your fingers like old dough. You pocket it again. The rats wave from shore, tiny treasonous paws conducting an invisible symphony. Their final edict drifts across the water, a hissing decree that all midnight snacks must be. But the river drowns the rest. The cook tosses a turnip at your shadow. Careful, that thing's starting to look electable. As the granary's silhouette shrinks, the air sweetens, hinting of apple orchards and poor decisions ahead. The blight penny warms against your thigh, dreaming of wine cellars and Venetian glass. You scratch your shadow's rat ear. It purrs like a rusty hinge. The blight penny clinks against 3 others in your pocket, a discordant chorus heralding Tarascon's paper-strewn shores. Children kneel at the river's edge, folding dragons from broadsheets titled Provençal Gossip. One origami beast floats past, its inky wings flapping sister Marie's suitor, caught with goat in boldface. A girl in a flour sack dress offers you a crane until it hisses and unfolds into a scandal sheet. They're better unread, she whispers, pointing to a drowned dragon dissolving downstream. That one wished for eternal life. Look at it now. The parchment disintegrates, its final headline screaming mistress of mayor seen buying arsenic. Tarascon's stone walls loom, decorated with char marks shaped like talons. Historians agree these scars memorialize the Tarasque, a river dragon slain by Saint Martha in 48 AD. Guidebooks omit how locals still slip honey cakes into the Rhône every June, just in case. The bookseller's stall leans against St. Martha's Chapel, its shelves buckling under pamphlets titled Dragon Husbandry for Beginners. A man in ink-stained gloves offers you a treatise on wing aerodynamics. The 1846 floods washed up a serpent skeleton, he murmurs. 19 ribs, iron teeth, city elders burned it before dawn. His wink suggests he kept a molar. You unfold a dragon from yesterday's news. Its body blooms with headlines. Baker wins lottery. Wine harvest cursed. The parchment shudders, then floats upward, defying the mistral. Careful, the bookseller chuckles. Aim higher than gossip. He dips your fingertip in gold ink, guides you to etch, bring back the rain lizards on a fresh crane. Children's laughter erupts as your wish dragon spirals into the clouds. They never listen, sighs a nun mending hymnals nearby. Last summer, a boy wished for winged cats. Now our bell tours overrun with agitated pigeons. The chapel's shadow stretches its profile jagged as a dragon's spine. Historians still argue whether the Tarasque was a misidentified crocodile or a metaphor for Roman taxation. You lean closer to a fresco of Saint Martha. Notice the leash in her hand is actually a noose. Dusk stains the sky burnt umber. paper beasts glow with bioluminescent ink swarming like fireflies over the key. The bookseller presses a scorched scrap into your palm, a fragment of some colossal wing. Found this after the '88 festival, when a papier-mâché dragon ate 17 lanterns. The edges still smell of smoke and poor decisions. A girl tugs your sleeve, her dragon folded from a love letter. Make it fly right, she pleads. You add a wish for fewer toilets in ballads, then launch it toward Marseille. It cartwheels, crashing into a fisherman's net. He shouts something unkind about poets. By moonlight, the paper fleet becomes a constellation of desires. A dragon inked with cancel lent leads the swarm dodging cypress trees. Another pleads, let Auntie's pickles win at Expo in trembling script. You almost miss the charcoal gray beast gliding silently until it unfurls a wing reading swallow the moon hole. The bookseller freezes. Ah, that one's been around. He recounts the legend of a 14th century monk who folded a dragon from his censured thesis. It grew scales mid-flight, tore through the harvest moon like a communion wafer. He claims crescent-shaped scars still mar the dunes at St. Mary's. Your blight pennies grow cold as the gray dragon ascends. Shadows sharpen, the town's lanterns dimming one by one. The bookseller palms a copper handbell. Ignore the stories, but maybe practice holding your breath. The dragon dissolves into a swarm of bats, or perhaps shredded contracts from the mayor's office. No one agrees. A fisherman swears he saw the moon flicker, while the nun insists it was just Mayor Toulon sneaking home from his mistress. Dawn finds you ankle-deep in papier-mâché debris. A child's wish drifts past. Let Matthew's warts become pearls. The bookseller salvages a wing fragment branded with lunar phases. Keep it, he yawns. Some say the dragon's still digesting. As your boat pulls away, a final parchment dragon dances in the wake, its body a marriage announcement, its wings a grocery list. You toss it a blight penny for ballast. The Rhône swallows both without judgment. The bookseller's voice carries across the water, a half-heard warning about ink allergies and overdue library books. Your shadow examines the moon-scorched scrap and begins folding something with too many teeth. The lock gates groan like an old dowager's knees, their iron joints crusted with river scum. You toss a blight penny onto the gears for luck. It bounces into the water with a judgmental plonk. The lockkeeper's wife watches from her perch, a mossy stool that sprouted mushrooms in the shape of listening ears. Her hands move without sound, rope strands braiding into complex knots. A clove hitch trembles as she ties it, then unravels into a hangman's noose. She frowns, starts again. Historians still argue whether the Rhone's 19th century locks were inspired by Roman aqueducts or drunken bets between engineers. You lean closer, spot a faded tattoo on her wrist, an Ouroboros swallowing a ship's anchor. The lockkeeper himself hollers from the control house, a man built like a wine cask with a beard full of suspicious feathers. Ignore the wife's knitting. She predicted last month's storm and my cousin's gout. His laugh dies as she holds up a knot shaped like a lightning bolt. He mutters something about ungrateful prophets and cranks the water levels higher. She blinks, once, twice, in perfect unison, with the tide lapping the lock walls. You count the rhythm, 11 blinks per minute. A deckhand whispers she hasn't spoken since '92, when a bargemaster mocked her knotwork, and later choked on a pretzel shaped like his initials. Her hands pause, fingers hovering over a half-finished sheepshank. The rope trembles, twists into a perfect miniature gallows. You offer her the moon-scorched paper from Tarascon. She folds it into a crow, its wings inked with your half-remembered dreams. It flaps once, then dive-bombs the lockkeeper's hat. Nemesis. He roars, swatting at the bird with a baguette older than your boots. The wife's shoulders shake in silent laughter. Night slithers in, turning the lock into a black mirror. The wife lights hurricane lamps, their wicks trimmed to resemble tiny lighthouses. She gestures you closer, knotting a frayed line into symbols. A wave, a cradle, a broken chain. A fisherman's widow once paid her 6 sous to predict her husband's fate, received a knot shaped like an eel with a wedding ring. They found his net 3 springs later, full of albino crawfish wearing pearl earrings. You ask if the knots ever lie. She tilts her head, tugs a cord around her neck free of her blouse. Dozens of tiny nooses dangle from it, each labeled with a year. The oldest, 1793, is singed at the ends. Local lore claims she's the ghost of a revolutionary's daughter who tied her hopes into rope and ran out of thread. The lockkeeper stomps over, spilling coarse salt from his pockets to ward off her gloom. He insists his great-granddad built this lock with bare hands, though records show French engineers used dynamite and a stolen Belgian pump. The wife rolls her eyes, knots a salt shaker from nearby reeds, dumps its imaginary contents on his head. By dawn, the waters leveled your boat rises like a reluctant sleeper. The wife presses a final knot into your palm, a double overhand twist humming with trapped river wind. That's for the rapids past Arles, the lockkeeper translates begrudgingly. Or maybe her grocery list. She's cryptic before coffee. As you drift into the canal, she stands at the edge, blinking with the tide's retreat. A child on shore waves a knotted jump rope, its loops forming letters you almost decipher. The lockkeeper shouts a farewell, accidentally knocking his feather-filled beard into a lantern. It catches fire briefly, smelling of burnt gull and poor life choices. You unravel the double overhand knot. Inside, a pebble from Marseille, a strand of silver hair, and a sketch of the moon with bite marks. The wife's crow perches on the mast, now folded into a perfect replica of the lockkeeper's frown. Against all logic, it begins to recite Provençal love poetry. The last verse rhymes gills with ills, which feels intentional. Mist blurs the shore, but you glimpse her still blinking, counting the tide's return. Her hands never stop moving, knotting futures only catfish will witness. The crow pecks at your ear until you hum a sea shanty. It's off-key, but so is the entire river this morning. Mist clings to your coat like a beggar's fingers as orange rises from the riverbank. It's Roman theater crouching on the hill like a stony predator. Rain begins its familiar tap dance. Fat drops sliding down moss-slick benches that haven't felt a buttock since Napoleon third-wheeled Josephine here. You crunch through puddles where laurel leaves float, each shaped like a tiny crown. A signpost rots nearby. Theater antique crossed out, replaced with cursed amphitheater in what looks like squid ink. The mask seller finds you first, her cart stacked with faces. Clay leather, even one made of hardened honeycomb that drips onto your boots. Free sample, she croons, pressing a silver half-mask to your cheek. It clamps like a mussel shell, warms to body temperature in seconds. Historians still argue whether Roman actors here performed comedies in reverse to confuse invading Visigoths. The mask seller snorts. They staged tragedies on Tuesdays, comedies during funerals, and parking. The musical every Saturnalia. You peel the mask off, leave a perfect cheekbone-shaped welt. She gestures to the stage below, where rainwater pools in footlight trenches. Watch closely at the third drizzle, she whispers. The stones remember lines better than the actors ever did. A gust ruffles your collar, carries the scent of wet stone and envy. Your guidebook claims this theater once seated 7,000, though the current audience consists of one underfed cat licking its paw like a tiny critic. Dusk bleeds into the stage's cracked marble shadows, solidify into robed figures declaiming to empty seats. Their words slur vowels waterlogged by centuries. Don't applaud, warns the mask seller. Last tourist who clapped got cast as victim number 3 in their eternal production of the miser's downfall. The spectral cast turns toward your sniffle, translucent eyes locking onto yours. You freeze until a pigeon splashes into a puddle, scattering the illusion like smoke. She offers a mask of braided reeds, half price for the superstitious. Its eye holes warp your vision, turning moonlit puddles into smears of quicksilver. Through the rushes, you glimpse figures in togas arguing over a scroll that bleeds ink. One points at you, mouth moving in practiced outrage. Local legend claims a Lovecraftian playwright haunts the dressing rooms, scribbling tragedies that drive stagehands to join circus. The cat hisses as thunder rips the sky. The drizzle becomes a downpour. Masks tremble on their hooks, their expressions shifting from tragedy to farce. You stumble into the vomitorium, its arched tunnels funneling rain into Gregorian chants. A tour groups abandoned umbrella blooms near ancient graffiti. Marcus sucks oysters, and for a good time, your flashlight dies, replaced by bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls like embarrassed stars. The mask seller reappears, holding a lamp shaped like Medusa's bowling trophy. They're rehearsing the flood scene, she says, nodding to distant splashes. 3rd century special effects. Real water, real drownings. Her cloak drips, but leaves no puddles. You mention the stone emperor's statue overlooking the stage, his missing nose, a victim of revolutionary target practice. She smiles. He lost the trident first, Neptune's still bitter about that loan. Midnight unravels the air, raindrops hang suspended, each holding a distorted reflection of the stage. The mask on your face growls, or maybe that's your stomach. Historians still argue whether the theater's hidden chamber stored props, prisoners, or a particularly raucous Dionysian fan club. The mask seller parts a curtain of ivy, reveals a spiral stair choked with playbills for productions like Oedipus Rex's Garage Band and Julius Caesar, the musical tax audit. At the bottom, a wooden crate pulses with fungal light. Inside, masks with no eye holes, scrolls smeared with honey wine, and a doll-sized chariot drawn by antidepressants. Backstage secrets, she murmurs. Take one, if you dare reinterpret your monologue. You pocket a thimble-sized helmet, immediately smell elderberries and regret. The cat follows, licking its lips like a miniature sphinx. The storm fades. Dawn licks the theater's upper tiers, turning puddles into funhouse mirrors. Your cheek welt throbs in Morse code, possibly detailing a recipe for bouillabaisse. The mask seller folds her cart into a leather satchel. Come back during a solar eclipse, she says. That's when the understudies perform. Her parting gift, a mask that erases your face at midnight, and a coupon for 20% off exorcisms. As you retreat, the theater exhales. Moss creeps over your footprints. Stone actors bow to no one, their encore drowned by tour buses revving in the parking lot. The guidebook's final page sticks to your fingers, a smudged map of Marseille. You scratch the mask-ridged skin on your cheek, taste copper, and 3rd act reversals. Behind you, the cat takes center stage, yowling an aria that makes nearby bats file a noise complaint. Your pocket warms. The thimble helmet now cradles a liquid pearl. The mask seller's laughter follows you to the dock, though she's nowhere in sight. Someone's scrawled, break a leg on the gangplank in what might be fermented squid ink. The river murmurs yesterday's gossip as you cast off. But you're already practicing your tragic monologue in case the storm encore needs volunteers. Half a mile downstream, you spot the theater's outline through mist rows of empty benches now occupied by crows. One wears your discarded reed mask, tilting its head as if critiquing the scenery. Your reflection in the river wrinkles no. That's just the mask's aftereffect. Or maybe the Rhône itself is rehearsing for a mirror-themed review. You hum the cat's aria, badly, as Marseille's salt-stained towers blur into view. The pearl in your pocket sings, a high C that cracks the thimble. Inside, a scrap of parchment lists tonight's performers. Your name appears under unreliable narrator, but the ink's already fading. The mask seller's final words echo. All matinees end at twilight, but tragedies, darling, you're always on curtain call. A raindrop slips down your neck cold, insistent, smelling of forgotten soliloquies. When you check the mask at midnight, its expression has shifted. Not comedy, not tragedy, but the weary smirk of someone who's seen this plot twist before. The rope bridge groans like an old man's knees as you approach, each plank warped into a permanent grimace. Wind whips up from the chasm, carrying the sour tang of wet hemp and better left unsaid vows. She's already there, the widow pacing the cliffside in a gown bleached gray by moon and misery. Her heels click against stone, a metronome counting hours since the last groom fled mid-ceremony. You step onto the bridge. It shivers not from your weight, but recognition. Medieval builders used vinegar-soaked ropes. Here, a preservative trick still debated by engineers. The widow's loom stands crooked in the gale, its shuttle darting like a silver minnow. Historians still argue whether these cliffs hosted actual weddings or just elaborate murder cover-ups. Your boot finds a desiccated bouquet wedged between boards, petals mummified into fists. 14 this month, she says without turning. Her voice rasps like silk tearing. Their eyes skid off me like eggs on a hot griddle. The loom clacks, threads weaving something translucent, spidery, a veil that glints with fish scale iridescence. Scholars claim medieval brides wore nettle fiber shifts for luck, though local teens insist it explains the divorce rates. She gestures to a rock bell, crushed signet rings, glinting dully. Dowries, she snorts. Men always pay, just never what they owe. The wind bullies your coat, tries to steal your left sleeve. You mention the well-preserved 12th century linen bra found upstream, still debated as either pilgrim finery or proof of riverine laundry theft. Her laugh cracks the air. Underwear historians, the true detectives of academia. Midnight leans close. The widow's veil snakes toward you, its edge brushing your wrist. Cold seeps in the kind that lingers in post-breakup apartments. Her loom now spins fog, trapping fireflies mid-flash. 16 broken engagements, she murmurs. 47 cold feet, 12 cases of convenient amnesia. You spot wedding, shoes fossilized in the cliffside, tiny barnacles clinging to the soles. She offers the veil. It hums against your palm like a beehive in reverse. Wear it at dawn if you enjoy unanswered texts. Moonlight reveals patterns in the fabric, initials being unpicked stitch by stitch. A tourist plaque nearby claims llama wool strengthens bridges, though the only llamas here are in THE Chinese letter, S clandestine rooftop zoo. Thunder growls upstream. The widow knots her threads into nooses, drapes them over a rusted chandelier hook. They'll say I'm jilted, bitter, cursed. Her shrug echoes. Never that I'm selective. Below, the river coughs up a corset's ribs, white as prison bars. You note how her shadow lacks a head. until realizing it's just your flashlight dying. Rain arrives, hissing through the loom's warp and weft. The widow doesn't blink her lashes, collecting droplets like liquid commas. 17 years dry cleaning vows, she mutters, feeding a priest's confiscated cufflinks into her spindle. Historians still argue whether jumping the broom here involved actual brooms or just the splintered remnants of previous grooms. Dawn claws at the eastern clouds. The widow folds her loom into a coffin-shaped locket, tucks it behind a stone etched with Mary in haste. The rest is lichen. Your borrowed veil now smells of disappointment and bergamot, the phantom scent of 100 abandoned altar bouquets. She counts the rings again, mutters about inflation. As you retreat, the bridge sags where you stood, a dip, memorializing your passage. The widow resumes her pacing, adding your shadow to some internal tally. Fishermen downstream swear they've seen her veils snagging on bullhead catfish, makeshift brides trailing through murk. You check your pockets, find a thimble-sized garter belt and a honey smear spelling, "Next time." The river purrs smug congratulations. Your reflection wavers, briefly wearing the veil's ghostly drape. By noon, you'll blame it on mold spores. By midnight, you'll hum a half-remembered wedding march while scrubbing fish scales from your boots. The widow's laughter follows, a sound like church bells fed through a wood chipper, as Marseille's spires pierce the horizon, indifferent to promises made or unmade. Morning licks Marseille's docks from your tongue, replaced by the sourdung reek of Pont Saint-Esprit's ovens. Dawn here bakes at 4 a.m. bellies first. You follow the ash clouds, burnt flour snowing on storefronts, still shuttered against night's debts. The bakery door groans, its iron hinges twisted into thorned crucifixes. Inside, a girl of maybe 12 kneads dough, with fists, her humming a hymn played backwards on a warped gramophone. Ovens line the back wall, each shaped like a bishop's mitre. Loaves protrude, their crusts branded with upside-down crosses that glisten like fresh scars. Pilgrim special, the girl says, not breaking rhythm. Her apron's embroidered with wheat stalks, strangling a lion, a cymbal band by 6 popes. You recall the 1951 mass poisoning here, 200 townsfolk hallucinating hellfire, still taught as ergot fungus in rye. She slams a proofing basket down. Grand Pier called it holy punishment. I call it bad flour storage. The ovens exhale, heat warping your knees. You mention the medieval bread trial laws, bakers executed for underweight loaves. Cute, she snorts, scoring a cross into a boule. Try owing rent in baguettes. Historians still argue whether the inverted cross marks represented heresy or just sloppy branding. Your fingers graze a loaf. It's warm as a sleeping child's temple. She jerks her chin toward the street. Pilgrims shuffle past, eyes bloodshot from all-night vigils. Their coins clink into a cauldron of vinegar. Purification, ritual, or health code dodge, depends who asks. They think the crosses protect against rheumatism and ex-wives. Her laugh cracks like a stale baguette. Gluten intolerance, they believe in gluten salvation. Obviously, dawn proper arrives, smeared across the Rhône like jam on burnt toast. The girl hurls a loaf at a pigeon. It veers midair, wings faltering. You note the 14th century tax records hidden in the bakery walls. Medieval accountants scribbling grain debts between recipes. A cobweb brushes your neck sticky as unbaked focaccia dough. Don't worry, she says, feeding rye into a mill. Spiders here only bite thrice-born converts. The ovens belch chimney smoke, curdling into shapes. A loaf splits open, its hollow center cradling a mouse skeleton. Happens Tuesdays. She shrugs, tossing it into a discount saint's bin. You parrot the myth that devils built the town's bridge paid in undercooked brioche. Her eyes narrow, spatula pointing at your throat. Masons unionized, demanded dental. That's the real miracle. Pilgrims mob the counter now, hands shaking, offering lockets filled with toenail clippings. The girl barters silently, cross-marked loaves for vials of Danube water and divorce papers. You spot a breadcrumb trail leading upstairs, each morsel sprouting blue mold. Don't, she warns, though it's unclear if she's talking to you or the mold. Heat makes your watch bend chew your wrist. The girl wipes sweat with a communion veil, its lace nibbled by flower beetles. They used to bake wafers here, till a nun saw Christ's face in a ciabatta. Historians still argue whether the 1623 miracle of the leaven involved divine intervention, or just rye ergot. She slathers butter on a Bible, feeds it to the fireplace. Noon looms the bakery, now a funhouse of dough spores. Pilgrims cram cross loaves into backpacks, one muttering about using crumbs to exorcise his Tesla. The girl collapses onto a flour sack, her humming reversed into something between a growl and a lullaby. You ask why she stays. Her smile's all molars. Someone's gotta remind God which way bread rises. Outside, the river belches up a bubble, bursting into the shape of a breadbasket. Your pocket's heavy. When did you nick that loaf? Its cross bleeds caramel, sticking to your fingers like sacramental glue. The girl's face appears in the bakery window, 5 stories tall and wielding a rolling pin. You walk faster, past cafes selling cursed bread ice cream, past a tour guide claiming the town's bakers invented gluten. By the bridge, a monk feeds sparrows, each crumb stenciled with a tiny anarchy symbol. Your stolen loaf throbs in time with the toll bells, rhythm matching the widow's laugh, still tangled in your hair. You fling it into the Rhône, watch it float like a Chinese letter L, Y, built raft. The river accepts this offering, spinning the cross until it resembles a crooked grin. Dusk arrives with the scent of char and cardamom. Lanterns flicker above bakeries doing a brisk trade in uncursed buns, triple the price. Your last coin buys a crescent roll, its layers unfolding like a map of purgatory. You chew slowly, tasting rosemary ash, and the faint metallic kiss of a bridge builder's ghosts somewhere upstream. A widow adds your name to her veil, and a girl laughs into her starter culture, both sounds swallowed by the yeast-scented wind. The river bends its surface, puckered like a smith's anvil. A chain rasps against the hull, slow and wet, as if the Rhône itself is gargling scrap metal. You lean over the gunwale. Rusted links coil beneath the water, their barbs crusted with muscles and teeth. Captain Villette spits into the current a brown arc that vanishes midair. Debtor's toll, she mutters, polishing her eye patch with a scrap of silk. The crew gathers, tossing dice onto a barrel stenciled MOLARS only. A cabin boy wagers his baby incisor, still amber with dried milk. The chain jerks, the boat shudders like a spooked mare. 10 meters upstream, a shadow hauls itself onto a half-sunken barge. Its rags drip black silt, fingers fused around rusted links. Historians note medieval Lyon once jailed debtors in iron collars, but none mention this. The figure's jaw clicks open, a void where molars should be. Pay or pick, growls the bosun, handing you pliers from his kit. You protest loudly until he winks. Not your teeth, genius. The crew's laughing now, betting on which pilgrim left a molar in last week's collection plate. You recall Avignon's shrine, where devotees offered teeth for pardons, though the church denies it, ever-sanctioned dental indulgences. The chain dragger scrapes closer, reeking of clove oil and river rot. Its hand extends palm up, barnacles etching maps of debt into the flesh. Captain Villette lobs a sack into the water, contents clacking like porcelain. The ghost rummages, selects a molar with a gold filling, pockets it in a cavity where its ribs should be. The crew groans, someone just lost 4 sous. The chain recoils, sinking with a gurgle that sounds suspiciously like a chuckle. You're welcome, snaps the captain, scribbling in her logbook. Archaeologists dredged 43 teeth from this bend in 98-6, marked with 14th century goldsmith stamps. Experts call them merchant IOUs. Locals swear they still ache during storms. Dusk thickens, water turning the color of a bruised gum. The bosun offers you an iron molar on a string, wards off toothache and exorcists. You decline, but slip it into your pocket anyway. Someone's humming a shanty about a dentist who supplemented his income and ran out of teeth. Moonrise finds the crew inspecting their own mouths with smuggler's mirrors. Captain Villette smirks, flicking a speck of tarnish off her eye patch. Ever notice how nobody asks where the captain's tooth went? The chain dragger's silhouette watches from shore now, gnawing on something that glints in the starlight. You try to sleep, but the pliers under your bunk click like mandibles. The river whispers old prices, a premolar for an acre of wheat, a canine for a mistress's silence. Historians still argue whether these chains were ritual offerings or just scrap from scuttled smuggler ships. Dawn breaks, thin as dental floss. The crew lines up to rinse their mouths with absinthe. Captain Villette tosses the last tooth, a wisdom molar, into the water. For good luck, she lies, adjusting her eye patch's strap. The chain dragger surfaces just once, its jaw now sporting a gold-capped grin before dissolving into the mist. Your tongue finds a loose filling. When did that happen? The bosun shrugs, dangling his iron molar overboard. It swings like a metronome, counting the debts the river hasn't claimed. Yet the morning mist clings to your eyelashes, blurring the world into watercolor. Sunlight fractures on the river, not through the water, but from beneath it. You blink, and there they are, dozens of you, rowing parallel realities in boats of frosted glass. One version wears a crown of snail shells. Another left hand has too many fingers. A third chews absently on that loose filling. Valabregs, canals were built to reflect 18th century grain shipments, or so the guidebooks claim. A glassblower's hut perches on the bank, its chimney exhaling spirals of blue smoke. The artisan inside dips her pipe into molten crystal, puckers her lips, and blows a lens the size of a goose egg. For regrets, she says, polishing it with a rag soaked in licorice wine. Fish see them as silver scales, humans see, well. You peer through the glass. The canal shimmers with ghostly barges, their hulls stacked with crates stamped Versailles 1734. My great granny cooled her glass in this water. The woman mutters, etching a tiny fish onto the lens. Historians still argue whether these canals were trade routes or pathways for sunken funeral processions. A reflection catches your eye, an alternate you disembarks downstream, stepping onto a dock paved with shards of mirror. Don't follow that one, snorts the glassblower. Spent 3 years apprenticed to a tooth puller in Marseille. She nods at your jaw. Not your finest hour, eh? You flinch, the memory of pliers flashing in torchlight. The glassblower tosses the lens into your palm. It's colder than river ice. Hold it underwater if you dare. The canal resists at first, liquid thickening like chilled honey. Through the lens, eels writhe in cursive, each squiggle a promise you broke. A fish darts past, its side etched with the words, KISSED, her at the ferry. You drop the glass. It sinks laughing. They always do that, sighs the glassblower, already blowing a new lens. Her furnace glows with reheated fragments, each shard a recycled regret. Tried selling 'em to monks once, too busy flagellating themselves to appreciate irony. Shadows lengthen, your reflections merge and split like mercury. One double steals a pie from a phantom windowsill. Another drowns a pocket watch. A third simply sits feeding breadcrumbs to a carp with your mother's eyes. The glassblower scrapes residue from her pipe. They're not futures, just the past's dirty laundry. You ask how to unsee it. She smirks, taps the side of her nose. Birthwort tincture or a strong cognac. Maybe both. Nightfall turns the canal into a funhouse mirror. Your alternate selves light paper lanterns, each flame a different hue of remorse. The glass blower packs up her tools, tosses a lens into your satchel. For the road, she winks. Try not to check it during arguments. Moonrise bleaches the water clean. Your last reflection waves from the far bank, its pockets bulging with stolen teeth. You shut your eyes, but the lens hums against your thigh, a hive of unborn apologies. Dawn finds the canals still as stopped clocks. The glassblower's hut stands empty, a half-formed swan of glass, cooling on her workbench. You pocket a shard, wondering which regret it'll refract. The river bends ahead, its surface buckling under the weight of unwritten futures. Your tongue finds the loose filling again. It tastes like a question. The river narrows into a corridor of weeping willows, their branches scraping the deck like skeletal harpists. A chorus of chirps sharpens the air. But these trills carry the metallic tang of coin. Ahead, gilded cages swing from low-hanging boughs, each wrought-iron prison housing a nightingale plumed in liquid moonlight. You half expect a soundtrack of twittering innocence. Instead, the birds open their beaks and bid. 15 sous. Warbles a scarred male, his song rising to a raspy 20. From a silver-feathered rival, a molting juvenile croaks 5. Between coughs, they're haggling for their own ballads, whispers the oarsman, spitting sunflower seeds into the current. Third Thursday of each moon auction day. Historians still argue whether medieval minstrels trained songbirds to mimic troubadour verses, or stole their melodies outright. The captain tosses a bronze coin into the nearest cage. A nightingale swallows it whole, then erupts into a warble so complex it diagrams the fall of Constantinople. 18th century musicologists wrote entire dissertations on these avian cantatas, and twice as many treatises debunking them as hoaxes. Your boot crunches something underfoot, a tiny scroll tied with mothwing ribbon. Unfurling, it reveals sheet music, notes shaped like question marks. The oarsman snorts. Found one of the rejected anthems. Last week's loser tried composing a dirge in the key of file. Flatworm. A shepherd materializes on the bank, his crook wrapped in rosemary stems. Don't whistle past moonset, he growls, though his breath smells suspiciously of apricot brandy. Nightingales here barter silence, 2-3 bars of La Marseillaise, buys 1 minute of perfect quiet. He demonstrates, pursing his lips. The nearest bird falls mute, its cage trembling with stifled vibrato. You pocket the scroll, wondering who'd auction a song titled Ode to My Incorrectly Taxidermied Spaniel. A henna-feathered nightingale catches your eye, her bids punctuated by rapid-fire wing flicks. 30 sous, plus the location of Anton's buried soup pot. She trills. The captain freezes his spoon halfway to a tin of beet stew. Dusk bleeds across the water. Winning bidders puff up their chests, their purchased melodies ricocheting between the trees. The loser, a one-legged bird missing half his tail feathers, hacks up a sour scale. Sounds like a drunkard playing the theremin, mutters the oarsman, rowing faster. 2 cages remain. The first holds a nightingale so ancient his crest has fossilized. His opening bid, 1 unresolved chord. The second's occupant is just a hatchling, still speckled with eggshell. She offers a lullaby, my mother. Never finished. You feel the glassblower's lens shift in your satchel, its cool weight humming sympathetically. The captain mutters about making port before the midnight ban on major keys. Your fingers twitch, torn between the fiddle case at your feet and the shepherd's warning. The hatchling's next bid cracks mid-note, a sound like a wineglass slipping from numb fingers. You hum a descending scale payment enough. She throws her head back and sings the lullaby. It smells of burnt honey and unfinished letters. The river accepts the melody, folding it into the current like a secret. The shepherd tips his hat, his rosemary crook sprouting fresh buds. As the last cage empties, you swear the nightingale's final trill lingers, tasting vaguely of loose fillings and half-kept promises. Moonlight slicks the water your oar strokes, now syncopated to the rhythm of a song nobody won. The lens in your bag grows colder, or maybe you're just warmer. Either way, you avoid whistling. Moonlight slicks the river into quicksilver paste, the boat drifting toward a forest of masts without anchors. Beaucaire's silhouette looms, its docks replaced by ships lashed hull to hull, crews leaning over rails to trade insults and dented cutlery. You smell salt skin and suspicion. A deckhand with barnacle-scabbed knuckles extends a palm, cradling a compass needle that points insistently southeast. Trade for a memory, he rasps, breath reeking of pickled cockles. Coastal ones only. No hinterland nonsense. You recall Beaucaire's medieval fare, once drew merchants from Alexandria to Antwerp, linen and pepper, perfuming the air for leagues. The captain mutters about 1385, when a silk trader's map showed 7 Beaucaires stacked like pancakes. Historians still argue whether it was cartographic madness or a tax evasion scheme. The deckhand scowls at your hesitation. No haggling. Your choice, the scent of Marseille's fish markets, or that tavern kiss in Cassis. His fingers tap Morse code on the needle, which hums like a struck tuning fork. You surrender the memory of Breton cliffs at dawn, salt spray stinging your eyelids. The deckhand inhales sharply, his pupils dilating into tidal pools. Decent vintage, he concedes, pressing the needle into your palm. It prickles like frostbite. Around you, anchorless crews barter in maritime absurdities. A red-bearded man swaps a jar of North Sea fog for a mermaid's curse, transcribed on kelp. Another auctions authentic Viking, belly-button lint, certified by a semi-retired bard. The mainstream fact slides in smoother than a greased dolphin. Beaucaire's real-life medieval fare rivaled Champagne's markets for 2 centuries. The quirky bit. Locals whisper that the town's stray cats still recite tannery price lists from 1312. You spot a tabby mouthing 2 soles per sheepskin as it licks its paws. Your new compass needle tugs northward, though everyone knows the Mediterranean's south. The deckhand laughs, a sound like creaking rigging. It points to where land should be. Sailors here navigate by absence. A ship drifts past, its hull tattooed with star maps. The crew plays dice with teeth, molars clattering across the deck. They're singing a shanty about a lighthouse keeper who married a squid. 17 verses, and getting weirder. You ask why they never touch shore. The deckhand's face hardens. Try planting cabbages with hands that dream of rigging. He spits overboard. The river rejects it, sending the glob arcing back onto his boot. Trade escalates. A child offers Napoleon's hypothetical childhood warts preserved in wax. A woman in a weather-worn ball gown sells hourglass sand that allegedly failed to reach Egypt with Antony's fleet. You pocket a vial, skeptical but charmed. The needle grows heavier, its pull now insistent. The deckhand nods toward the horizon. That's your exit serenade. Remember, true sailors steer by what's missing. He winks, revealing a flicker of Breton cliffs in his left iris. As your boat slips through the floating bazaar, a cook throws garlic at a gull screeching opera. The bird catches a clove midair, cawing a perfect middle C. You grip the needle. It's chill, leaching into your wrist bone. Dawn stains the water the color of slurried peaches. The compass tugs not south, not north, but toward the gap between. Behind you, a crewman's laughter echoes like a dropped anchor chain sinking into myth. The compass needle liquefies in your palm, molten silver pooling between lifelines. Storm clouds bruise the horizon, their bellies swollen with yesterday's rain. You catch the reek of wet hemp and black tea steeping in a cracked porcelain pot. She materializes at the prow, a woman with hair like frayed rigging, shuffling cards edged in verdigris. The deck flexes like a living thing. River currents red futures here, she says, laying a card face down on a coil of rope. The ink depicts a capsized ferryman, his oars snapped like wishbones. Historians still debate whether medieval sailors actually used tarot for navigation, or just blamed bad winds on poorly drawn swords cards. Her nail chipped and saw-trimmed taps the reversed boatman. This storm's already happened. You're rowing through its ghost. A wave slaps the hull, spraying droplets that taste of sour wine. You mention Marseille's shadowed docks from 3 nights back. She snorts. Harbors remember drowned sailors better than wives do. That compass. Her grin reveals a silver-capped molar etched with tiny oars. Directions mean nothing here. Burn it. The quirky bit slithers in locals' claim. The Rhone's currents whisper tarot interpretations through eel migrations. True or not, you spot silvery shapes darting beneath the boat, their bodies coiled like question marks. She fans 9 cards across the damp planks. The lovers show 2 figures back to back, sharing a single heartbeat. The tower's flames burn downward. When you reach for a card, she slams your wrist with a conch shell. Not a game. You've been mortgaging memories to the wrong creditors. Dampness seeps into your boots. The storm's so close now, you could thread a needle with its lightning. She rips the boatman card, scattering fragments into the wake. That map you're clutching, it's a obituary for places that never existed. A fact as sturdy as oak timbers, tarot decks reached Europe through Mediterranean trade routes, their symbols warped by Silk Road whispers. She knows this, rolling her eyes at your half-remembered trivia. Symbols are barnacles. Scrape them off, you'll find older rot underneath. The boat lurches, sending a teacup skittering into the dark. She catches the last dribble with a flick of her wrist. They say Napoleon consulted a Lyon card sharp before Waterloo. Asked if he'd win. Reader said yes, but didn't specify which war. Your fingers brush the map's edge parchment, now soft as fungi. She hisses, tossing a pouch of sulfur matches into your lap. Flames purify lies. Keep one ash planted under a new moon. Might grow a truer compass. Thunder grumbles like a disgraced poet. The eels swarm their bodies, forming a spiral that mirrors the torn card. You strike a match, its scent dragging up memories of forge fires and censorship burnings. The map curls, edges blackening like wings in flight. She watches satisfied as embers spiral upward. Good. Now navigate like the old ones did by what the river steals. The storm breaks, drenching you in warm, insistent rain that smells of lavender and ink. The eels disperse. The teacup surfaces miles downstream, carrying a sediment of unanswered questions. You pocket a single charred scrap, the word, here surviving in smoke-flecked cursive. Dawn arrives, as it always does, unimpressed by your revelations. The tarot reader's laughter follows you, tangled in the scent of burning maybe. Your boots sink into soil that hums beneath the lavender rose, each step releasing steam that smells like burnt sugar and regret. Stone walls loom ahead, their cracks sprouting spoon handles instead of ivy. A woman kneels among the purple blooms, her apron pockets bulging with thistle heads. She glances up, sunlight catching the surgical scar bisecting her left iris. They sang to the moon through their cutlery, she says, snapping a lavender stalk with a sound like a snapped bone. Historians still argue whether Van Gogh really painted Starry Night here in 1889 or just copied the asylum's wallpaper. Your shadow stretches toward an open window, its iron bars warping your silhouette into something fork-tailed and sharp. The air tastes of beeswax and unwashed linen. From deep underground, a chorus hums a hymn you half remember from childhood, if childhood involved laudanum drips and leather restraints. The gardener spits into her spade. Spirits are just unfinished people. These ones, mid-sentence, she gestures to a rusted grate. Peering down, you spot winged shapes flitting in the dark, not bats, but crumpled spoons bent into feathery spirals. A quirky fact floats up. Victorian doctors here prescribed smoking lavender to treat hysteria. You stifle a cough as pollen coats your tongue bitter as old prescriptions. They tried to fly through the cutlery drawer. The woman mutters, yanking a thistle from the soil. Its roots dangle a human molar. Monks once buried plague victims here. Now we grow remedies that smell like apologies. She offers you a seed pod, its spines pricking your palm. Plant this where nightmares root. It'll bloom into something that knows your name. A breeze stirs the lavender, the field rippling like a shaken rug. For a heartbeat, the flowers form a face screaming in reverse. The gardener nods, unimpressed. Ground's thin here. Mind your weight. Dust motes swirl around your ankles, each speck a shard of some shattered lament. You pocket the sedative fingers, brushing a spoon wing that landed in your collar. It vibrates, emitting a note that liquefies your fillings. The woman laughs, a sound like ice cracking underfoot. He'll follow you home now. Third one this month. Sunset stains the asylum, walls the color of diluted blood. As you turn to leave, your shadow detaches itself, scuttling into the lavender like a wounded crab. The gardener sighs, plunging her spade into the soil with finality. Tell the river I kept my promise. Moonlight fractures through pine branches, revealing a gaunt figure hunched over a half-carved oar. His knife moves with the river's rhythm, each curl of wood peeling away to reveal a name. Your boot snaps a twig, the sound echoes like a mast cracking. He doesn't look up. Roman ships used yew wood oars here until the river claimed 8 legions in a single night. The blade pauses. They still grip them down there. A pinecone rolls to your feet, its scales etched with tiny oar blades. Historians still argue whether the drowned legions carried gold or just grain. The carver's hands shimmer, translucent as river fog, as he taps the oar's edge. A low hum vibrates your teeth. You've met my splinter. His voice grates like wet rope through a pulley. The one that sings. You fumble for the moonlit sliver from Saint Tramy, now buzzing against your thigh like a trapped hornet. He sniffs the air, oaks too proud, ash too brittle. But pine. The knife stabs into the log. Pine remembers every storm that ever bent it. Fog weaves between trees, forming phantom galleys that dissolve mid-stroke. A quirky truth surfaces. Medieval sailors here believed splinters from cursed oars could ward off fevers. Your palms itch as the ghost extends a hand woven from root tendrils. Trade. The splinter leaps to his grip, embedding itself in the oar's grip. Names flare blue along the shaft: Marcellus, Drusilla, Gaius, each pulse synchronized to your heartbeat. They anchor me, he mutters, shaving off a new splinter. This one drips resin that smells of drowned orchards. Your turn. River waiter creeps up your ankles cold as a widow's wedding ring. You hesitate, but the carver's blade moves again. 93 voyages I've carved, 93 oars fed to the Rhône. His chisel strikes a knot, unleashing a choir of children's laughter. She returns them after. Mist solidifies into shapes, a fleet of spectral oars circling your calves. One brushes your hand, its surface scarred with barnacle script. Aurelia sank with all charms. The carver spits into the shavings. Every captain lies to the river. The wood never does. Moonlight shifts, revealing his chest cavity packed with pine cones instead of ribs. A fat spider scuttles from one, trailing silk that hums in C minor. You press the new splinter to your palm. It stitches itself under your skin without breaking it. The carver grunts approval. You'll hear them now, the ones who didn't float. Wind rifles through the pines, 1,000 oars creaking in unison. Names blur as the fog thickens, but that hum remains lodged between your molars like a hymn. The carver dissolves into wood smoke, his final words clinging to the resin-scented dark. Tell the drowned I found their vowels. Dawn bleeds through the trees as you stagger back to shore. The splinter under your skin pulses softly, whispering a list that begins with your own name. Dawn's glare bakes the cliffs bone-white as you approach Les Box, a carcass of a fortress gnawed by centuries. Metal swallows dart between rock formations, eyes glowing like molten iron. One lands near your boot, its claws click-clacking against a stone streaked with silver veins. There, after starfall ore, wheezes a voice from the shadows. A figure steps forward, his pickaxe fused to skeletal fingers. Aluminum mines once fed half of Provence. Now, we scavenge what the sky discards. You squint at the cliffs, pocked with holes like a shotgun blast through time. The ghost miner spits phantasmal dust. Local smiths forged armor here so light, knights swore it was sewn from cloudcloth. His laugh crackles. Traded 3 villages for one gauntlet, charlatans. A swallow drops a shimmering pebble at your feet, warmer than blood. The miner prods it with his pick. Meteoric iron or volcanic mischief. Scholars bicker, but it sings sweeter than Toulouse gold. He leans closer, the stench of old dynamite clinging to his rags. Found a vein once pure as angel teeth. Boss walled me in for safekeeping. He taps his hollow chest. Took 'em 11 days to hear my singing. Wind whips through the crags, carving a dissonant tune across the swallow-made holes. The miner produces a ring forged from that same otherworldly metal, its surface crawling with half-formed constellations. Wear it till sundown. It'll sear your finger bone black. He grins, molars made of rust. But tonight lets you smell storms 7 leagues offshore. Tourists trample below, hunting lavender fields, oblivious to your negotiation. You mention the splinter's hum still lodged in your palm. The ghost freezes. Harbor masters mark that one. She tags whoever's bound for a wet grave. His pickaxe scrapes a cliff face, unearthing a metal swallow's nest. Inside, thimbles, nails, and a pocket watch still ticking. Collecting tolls for the smith, he's building something that won't drown. Shadows sharpen as noon nears. The ring's weight feels obscene, like carrying a severed tongue. Medieval ledgers claim Lesbach's nobles wore meteorite rings to ward off peasant uprisings. Didn't work. Your guide melts into daylight voice lingering. Find the forge where smoke walks backward. Ask about the anvil that bites. A swallow's wing nicks your ear, dropping a screwdriver into your collar. Not screwdriver, miniature anchor. Its chain leaks blue liquid that evaporates midair. Fog pools, suddenly reeking of scorched almonds. Through it, a hunched smith hammers metal that screams. The ring blisters your finger, a bargain sealed. Dusk comes. You remove the ring just as its edges curl into flame, leaving a band of dead flesh. Somewhere below, a tourist shrieks about lavender turning gray. The splinter in your palm thrums, recognizing the oar's song. Names float up, not drowned, but hungry. The miner's voice slithers from a nearby crevice. Next tide brings the blooming leviathan. You'll need better jewelry. Stars emerge, but their light bends toward the cliffs, swallowed by the smith's unseen creation. Your blistered finger twitches, already craving another burn. Rivers come, glitters gold, where the Rhône yawns wide, saffron threads caught in its teeth. Evening paints the water like spilled ale as a barge drifts alongside. Its deck swims with burlap sacks, stained the desperate yellow of a Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter canary. A woman leans over the rail, hooded despite the heat. Smells like greed and old stables gnawn. She flicks a crimson thread your way. Shipment for Avignon's papal chefs. Or it was, before someone substituted pigeon pepper for the real spice. Your blistered finger twitches, that phantom burn harmonizing with the river's metallic hum. The merchant hoists a sack, its bottom torn. A golden dust snows onto the deck. 14th century, Popes ate saffron-stuffed peacocks. They thought it cured cowardice. She snorts, explains the Crusades. Her sleeve rides up, revealing forearms tattooed with fading recipes. One line wriggles ink, reacting to the pollen. A skiff scrapes against the barge manned by a boy clutching a rusted censer. New guard, he asks too casually. The merchant chucks a clove at his head. Gaston's 8th cousin thinks he'll sniff out my stash. She rolls her eyes. My last muse got inhaled by a cardinal with sinus issues. You crouch to examine the spillage. Your shadow stretches 10 hands long. The golden powder clings to your boots, dyeing the leather a guilty orange. Real saffron's price once rivaled gold. Kingdoms drained their treasuries for this madness. The merchant kicks the sack. Fakes flood the market since Lyon's spice vaults collapsed. They're seasoning communion wafers with marigold now, heresy with better branding. Night slinks closer, the river blushing murky peach. The merchant lights a pipe, its smoke reeks of burnt honey. Found a scroll once, Byzantine kitchen notes. Said saffron crocus petals open for whispered lies. She exhales a lazy spiral. Tried it, made my neighbor's cat recite Sappho. Now the beast critiques my hexameters. Gaston's cousin swings his censer near your knee, incense, ashes, tainting the saffron spill. The merchant hisses, lunging to salvage threads. Her hood slips, exposing ears pierced with tiny spice jars. Ignore the brat. His grandma sold cinnamon to basilisk breeders. She stuffs threads into a vile hand trembling. True saffron's a covenant. Harvesters must sing the fields to sleep, or the stamens turn to ash. The barge lurches, sending Gaston's cousin into the river. He surfaces cursing incense drowned. Debate rages whether 14th century saffron vaults were spice stores or slang for papal mistresses. The merchant smirks, tucking the vial into your pocket. Keep that close, unless you fancy your dreams tasting like tax ledgers. Moonrise catches the river in a chokehold, turning waves into liquid onyx. The merchant points downstream. A lantern bobs near the shore. There's my buyer, Venetian dandy with a pearl noose. Good tipper, awful breath. She hesitates, plucking a thread from your sleeve. Your ring-scarred finger, that's saleable. You step back, ankles tangled in mooring ropes. She shrugs. Fine, keep the battle wound. But tell future biographers I tried. Her laugh gurgles like a wine jug emptying. Oh, avoid Arles night market. There, saffron breads just turmeric and crushed fireflies. Gaston's cousin climbs aboard dripping and sullen. The merchant tosses him a rag. Dry off, you smell like a wet heresy. She turns to you, eyes reflecting the stolen saffron's glow. My real muse, a spice taster from Cagliari, swallowed a whole bud to spite her husband. Now her ghost seasons every soup in Marseille. Bells clang in the distance, Avignon's curfew. The merchant's buyer waves impatiently, his pearl collar strangling the moonlight. She straightens her hood. Never trust a man whose perfume costs more than his conscience. Learned that selling ginger to glove-makers. A fish leaps, its scales glazed gold. The river's heartbeat thrums through the deck. Or maybe that's the phantom saffron in your veins. As the barge drifts toward the pearled idiot, the merchant mouths a final tip. Rub a thread on your tongue at midnight. If it tastes like regret, you've got the real thing. Dawn's first blade cuts the horizon, but you're already miles downstream. That vial warms your pocket, or maybe it's the ghost of a housecat poet judging your life choices. The Rhône murmurs like a drugged bear, its waters dyed amber by someone else's sins. Salt crusts your lips as the Rhône spills into the Camargue its delta, clawing at the Mediterranean like a drunk beggar. Dawn bleaches the marsh to bone white, storks spearing silver fish between drowned olive groves. Hoofbeats thunder through the brine. A dozen pale horses surge past, their riders barefoot in the surf. Foam slicks the beasts' flanks, making them gleam like half-carved statues. A stable boy materializes at the rail, smelling of kelp and envy. They're recruiting, but only the drownable need apply. The lead horseman lifts a conch shell to cracked lips, its drone vibrating your molars. Fact: these marsh-bred steeds have trotted here since pre-Roman times, hooves splaying wide, to conquer mud. Legend says they're born from sea foam and winter mist, which explains why they hate saddles. The stable boy spits black tobacco. It floats like a dead tadpole. King Louis once tried to armor them. Steeds dragged the iron into a bog and drowned the blacksmith. Your boots sink into silt, the marsh swallowing you ankle first. Riders circle their conch song, now a gagging hum. One dismounts, boots oozing brine. His teeth are filed to points, a local fashion or warning. You smell of upstream sins. He growls, salt crystallizing in his beard. The stable boy snickers. Told you they'd notice that papal saffron. Through the rider's legs, you spot stone ruins submerged in tidal pools. Historians still argue whether those are Roman watchtowers or the world's worst advised bathhouse project. The horseman grabs your wrist, his grip colder than the river. Ever fought a wave before you can lie? He hoists you onto his mare's rump. The stable boy waves farewell with a rusted spur. If they offer you a conch, say, it clashes with your complexion. The mare charges into deeper waves. The horseman's laugh sharp as gull cries. Fact, real Camargue cowboys, called guardians, still herd black bulls here using medieval techniques. These riders aren't hurting anything, unless you count regret. You clutch the mare's mane, it's stiff with dried salt. Our enemies ride urchin-spined rays. The horseman shouts over the surf. Their lances, jellyfish stingers dipped in widow's tears. A shadow writhes beneath the waves, ribbed and vast as a capsized galleon. The horseman thrusts his conch into your hands. Blow or become bait. You manage a wet honk. The water boils pale creature's surface. Horseshoe crabs clad in barnacle armor. Their pincers snap at the mare's legs. She kicks, shattering a crustacean helm. A scouting party. The horseman wheels his steed, retreating toward flamingo-specked lagoons. Back on the marsh, you slump against a driftwood log. The stable boy tosses you a wineskin, vinegar, masquerading as wine. They'll be back at sundown. Wars beneath the waves run punctual. He nods to crumbling frescoes on a nearby hut, peeling art of men, battling fish-limbed knights. Quirky tidbit. 19th century fishermen swore they pulled up helmets full of angry eels every full moon. The horseman guts a sea bream with his thumbnail, offering you the still-twitching skeleton. Eat. You'll need the fear. As dusk bruises the sky, he points to the horizon. Shapes emerge, riding the tide on horseback, riders cloaked in seagrass. Your horseman mounts up, conch raised. Tonight we raid the coral city. Try not to scream when the crabs start singing. The stable boy leans close, his breath reeking of pickled clams. Lose a finger down there, and it'll wash up in Marseille, gripping a love note. You ask how he knows. He winks. 2 live shrimp dart from his sleeve. Same way, I know you've got papal saffron in your left pocket. And a talent for bad decisions. As the horsemen charge back into the surf, their conch cries fading to garbled whispers, you touch that stolen vial, the mare's hoofprint beside your boot, starts filling with brine, or maybe it's the sea itself leaking through. The sea's brine hardens into salt scabs on your sleeves as you trudge inland, the vial of papal saffron, a guilty weight. A village clings to the coast, its lime-washed walls peeling like sunburned skin. Broken tiles stud every surface, chips of blue and gold winking beneath your boots. A woman squats in an alley, her hands sorting shards into clay bowls. You'll want to avoid the third courtyard, she says without looking up, unless you enjoy walking through your own funeral. Her mosaic in progress shows a chariot race, horses frozen mid-leap. One rider's face is unmistakably yours, eyes wide as the horses trample a man with your exact nose. Fact: Romans laid mosaics so detailed, archaeologists once mistook a hunt scene's lion for a live cat, until the mortar gave it away. That's the mosaic emissaria, the woman mutters. Records history, the victors misplace. She taps a tile, showing your hand gripping a dagger you've never owned. You ask how she captures faces unseen. Her laugh rasps like sand on glass. Tiles remember. Step on enough crossroads, you leave footprints in clay. She thrusts a bowl at you, shards clinking like teeth. Quirky tidbit: 19th century goats here reportedly licked tiles until their tongues bled, claiming the salt of old wars. Your boot heel grinds a cerulean fragment. It whispers something that might be egg smorts. The mender snatches the piece, her thumb wiping salt to reveal your profile among sinking ships. 3 times you appear, 3 teeth owed. She points to mosaics underfoot, your face repeated in a siege, a banquet, a drowning. Historians still argue whether missing lion tiles in Pompeii were vandalism, or editors with chisels. You ask what happens if you refuse payment. She spits. The saliva etches a tiny shark in the dust. Then you become the grout. A toddler wobbles past, trailing a string of dried molars. The mender pockets one without breaking eye contact. Teeth outlive empires. Ask the Etruscans. Their dentures still chatter in museum cases. She presses a shard into your palm. It depicts your current boots, crusted with Rhône mud. Repair costs extra. Tragedies always tax exempt. From the harbor, a ship's horn groans. The mender stands, her apron raining tile dust. They'll tell you Mediterranean means middle of the earth. Lies. It's Phoenician for land's end. She flicks a shard toward the docks. Your 3 faces now show a 4th, boarding a vessel with patched sails. Final tooth settles the account. You pop a molar from your jaw, the pain bright and brief. She weighs it like a peach. Next time, floss more. The dead prefer plaque-free bribes. As you turn toward the sea, salt stinging the fresh gap in your gums, the mosaics shift. Every step reveals new permutations. You as a merchant, a thief, a corpse wrapped in faded silk. The mender's voice follows you, a dry rasp over the waves. Tell Marseille's fishmonger his molars overdue. And don't step on the goat. Dockworkers load crates stamped with a 3-eyed owl, your stolen saffron prickling in its pouch. A sailor tests the wind with a spit-soaked finger. Tides turning. Last chance to stay or become someone else's mosaic. You board the planks, creaking a familiar warning. Behind you, tile shards clatter like dice, rearranging futures with every breaker's crash. The salt-crusted gates groan, egg smorts rising like a bone chess piece inland. Its grid of alleys taunts you, every turn mirrored and mechanical. Winds snarl against limestone, collaring themselves in dead-end streets. A sailor leans on a barrel, his grin missing 3 teeth. They say Louis IX launched crusades from these walls. But have you heard the walls themselves crusade nightly? Fact, the town's geometric layout pioneered medieval urban planning, every street plotted to funnel sea winds into flour mills. Fools. The sailor spits, the droplet caroms off 5 surfaces before hitting your boot. Grids aren't for wind, they're rat mazes for drafts. He uncorks a jar, dry air hisses like a snake shedding skin. Saharan vapor purloined from a caravan's last breath. Trade you for one decent sigh. You exhale, the wind whips it into the alley. Cobblestones hum, a staccato rhythm that might be Morse code. They're complaining again, the sailor chuckles. Breezes get testy when caged. Quirky tidbit, 19th century schoolchildren here claimed gusts taught them algebra via tap code, though their equations always solved to free us. A trapped zephyr tugs your sleeve. It draws 7 rapid dots against your wrist. You glance at the sailor. SOS. Elementary, my friend. They've been screaming that since the Second Crusade. He shakes the jar. Its contents swirl like fogged breath on glass. Your sigh's already halfway to Timbuktu. Still, fair's fair. The desert air tastes of parched time and burnt parchment. It lingers, and for 3 heartbeats, you understand wind's dialect. The alleys aren't prison walls, they're sheet music. Every corner's ricochet composes a fugue of grievances. Banners snap overhead, their frayed edges conducting the chaos. A shopkeeper arranges clay jars labeled calm, Sirocco, and regret. Historians still argue whether the town's grid prevented invasion or provided staging grounds for aerial mail fraud. The sailor pockets your captured, it glows faintly in its new vial. Careful with that desert draft drinket, and you'll vomit every secret you've swallowed since Lent. A gust slams shutters in sequence, D-flat, G-sharp, D-flat. A child's ball rolls past, its patches flapping like exhausted lungs. 3rd courtyard's worst, the sailor mutters. Wind, they're so thick, you can wear it as a scarf. You find it by accident, a cul-de-sac where breezes pile up like unpaid bills. They hiss through your hair, each strand tuned to a different octave. One particularly vexed draft keeps spelling "mared" against your neck. The sailor reappears, his jar now cradling what looks like a miniature tornado. Changed my mind, take your sigh back. It's too conflicted. The returned breath slips into your pores, carrying whispers of a storm that hasn't formed yet. Fish vendors shout prices their words butchered by cross-currents. Never trust a gale that apologizes. The sailor warns, melting into a side street. You catch his final words tangled in a dust devil, and check your pockets for thistles. As dusk bruises the sky, the winds tire. They slump in doorways, exhausted performers after a matinee. You catch a faint tapping against stone 4 dashes, 1 dot. Your teeth vibrate, translating the vibration. The message repeats, tonight's final bulletin from the incarcerated air. It's not Morse, but a knock pattern. 3 quick, 2 slow. Exactly how your grandmother rapped before entering your childhood room. A shop shutter flies open. Wind slaps a map into your hands. The parchment's blank, until a breeze skims it, raising ink like braille. Routes appear each path a different tautology. Marseille via Mistral, Marseille via Regret, Marseille via 12 sighs. The sailor's jar vibrates. Its stolen breaths demand overtime pay. You tear the map. The scraps flutter away, drunken moths chasing lamplight. By the salt pans, workers rake crystalline dunes. Their shovels scrape a discordant lullaby. One pauses, offering a lump of unprocessed salt. Inside, a preserved mayfly beats its wings. Whether this is art or accident, the wind isn't saying. It's too busy etching tomorrow's complaints into the western wall, one tortured vowel at a time. The salt pans fade behind you, their geometric trenches dissolving into twilight. A single lantern blooms ahead, its keeper bent like a question mark. His pole scrapes bronze against stone, each strike peeling back the night. 23, he mutters, a tally meant for the dark. 23 flames snuffed by fibs upstream. Fact, Marseille's old port lanterns once guided ships past the Friaul archipelago's teeth, their keepers sworn to celibacy and absolute truth. This one's no monk. His fingers glisten with fish grease. Liars drain the light. He croaks, tapping his pole's iron cage. The flame inside gutters dimming as a distant church bell tolls. Hear that. Vicar's sermon on chastity, flames halved. You lean closer. The wick pulses like a wounded firefly. Quirky tidbit. Town records mention a 17th century ordinance taxing lanterns per flame, until someone lit 14 using a smuggler's monocle. The lighter scowls at your shadow. Your turn, confess something petty. Stealing jam, coveting a neighbor's mule. The flame brightens slightly as you admit to pocketing a salt lump earlier. Pathetic, he snorts. But market-rate honesty these days. He unscrews the lantern's base, revealing a braid of what looks like frozen breath. Silence spun to flax, holds flames truer than vows. Guard it, but don't name it. Night tightens around the port. The lighter hobbles ahead, purging shadows with erratic jabs. Each lit post hisses as if damp. Historians still argue whether lantern keepers doubled as Inquisition informants or just enjoyed roasting chestnuts on the job. That one's a gossip. He growls, stabbing toward a flickering street lamp. Its glass trembles, emitting a high sea sings confessions after midnight. Last week, it balked a baker's recipe. A gull lands on his pole, its beak clacking out 3 sharp notes. The lighter flicks it away. Don't feed them. They're debt collectors for the tide. You pass a tavern, its patron's laughter snuffs 2 lanterns. The keeper curses, relighting them with a flask of briny alcohol. Aquaviti my arse. This is just Corsican grappa with delusions. He pauses where waves gnaw the key. Your silence wick, how's it hanging? You unclench your palm. The braid now glows faint amethyst. Ah, it's metered your lies. 3 violet hues mean you fibbed about height taxes, and whether you actually like fig jam. A fisherman's buoy clangs offshore. The flame recoils into blue. Trawlers returning with empty nets and full stories. Watch. The boat docks, its crew spinning tailies of squid playing harps. 4 lanterns die mid-sentence. The keeper reignites them, grumbling about maritime narcissism. Near the customs house, he freezes. A bureaucrat's shadow stretches across the cobbles, longer than physics allows. The lighter snaps his fingers. The wick flares, burning the silhouette back to human proportions. Hedgehog size lies manageable. Whale size, you'd need a lighthouse. He nods to a shuttered cafe. 1943, resistance fighters used lamp codes here. Dotted B-flats meant Gestapo at table 6. The flame dips, ashamed or weary. You ask how he became a wickmaster. His laugh smells of sardines. Failed comedian. Crowds preferred my heckles. Dawn threatens. The lighter retrieves his silence braid. It's now obsidian, thrumming with withheld secrets. Yours kept 3 shipwrecks from happening. Don't ask which. He pockets it. The remaining flame winks out. Debt paid, mostly. As he shuffles away, a single lamppost brightens unaided. Its glass warms your cheek, projecting a faint image. You see the lighter younger, reciting limericks to pigeons. As the first occupation troops disembark, a whisper slithers up from the harbor, maybe tide, maybe truth. He's still performing, just for darker crowds. Your pocket gains weight. A vial of liquid shadow rolls against the salt lump. The fisherman's lie about musical squid hums inside. You consider jettisoning both, but the lanterns watch. Their glass eyes memorize your hesitation, archiving it with all flame-bound debts. The liquid shadow leaks into your pocket lining, dyeing the stolen salt lump indigo. Marseille's docks swallow the horizon, a forest of masts casting nothing. No reflections ripple in the harbor's oil-slick water. A trawler glides past, its hull leaving blank spots in the waves. Crewmen toss crates to the quay, each thud erasing a random Tuesday from your mind. History lesson incoming. This port bankrolled medieval Europe's crusades through taxes on dried eels. The smell confirms it, centuries of fish guts baked into cobblestones. A fishmonger winks, his cart stocked with translucent creatures squirming in vinegar. Fancy a gossipy lamprey. These boys swallowed a troubadour's last concert. 3 eels arch their mouths, forming perfect O notes. You decline. The man shrugs, tossing one into a brine jar. It hums La Complainte de la Blanche Herman off-key. Suit yourself, but that one, he points to a barrel-sized conger eel. He knows what the Romans buried under Fort St. Jean. The eel belches. A bubble pops, releasing the word elephantastrum. Historians still argue whether Emperor Caligula really sank a ship full of circus animals here, or just dock workers got into bad absinthe. A sailor bumps your shoulder, his face blurred like smudged ink. Unload your regrets, 2 denarii per kilo. He gestures to his ship, the Mnemosyne. Its deckhand scrapes barnacles that scream in old Occitan. You shake your head. The sailor's sigh erases your memory of childhood piano lessons. The fishmonger cackles. Smart, that one's crew paid in nightmares. They hallucinate the Black Death every Thursday. He offers a dried sardine you bite. Instantly, the taste morphs into your grandmother pear tart. See, edible nostalgia. Illegal in 17 counties. At the customs shack, clerics stamp manifests with seals that bleed. One document floats into the water. The harbor swallows it, digesting some merchant's tax fraud. The eel's song shifts, now crooning about a smuggler who hid saffron in saintly relics. You find a tavern where patrons sip drinks through wax straws, prevents spilling secrets into the beer. A barmaid slides you a murky cocktail, house special fermented figs, and existential dread. It tastes like licking a philosopher's tombstone. 3 sips in, you forget how to tie shoelaces. A trader plops down his cloak stitched with eclipses. Interested in forgotten things, he opens a valise. It yawns like a toothless mouth. Inside, snowflakes from Charlemagne's beard, the last cough of a defeated poet, a map to Atlantis, stamped approximate. The real treasure's here. He taps a vial labeled your first lie. You clutch your pocket. The liquid shadow hisses in response. The trader smirks. Ah, got town hall brand darkness. Careful, municipal gloom comes with subscription fees. Outside, waves slam the key in Morse code. LIARS, BURN, BRIGHTER. Dawn approaches. The shadow ships dissolve like sugar in coffee. The fishmonger packs his eels. Last chance for harbor secrets. You glance at the conger. Its gills flutter, spelling MASILIA in bubble script. The fishmonger frowns. Cheapskate. That's just the Roman name everyone knows. He trundles away, cartwheels squeaking a nursery rhyme. You pocket a fallen eel scale. It sticks to your thumb, whispering a latitude. Somewhere east of here, a lighthouse burns answers instead of light. You consider following, but your shoes fill with liquid shadow suddenly. They trudge south on their own toward the Mediterranean's hungry grin. Salt crusts your lips like a second skin. The Rhone's last cling before letting go. Your shadow-heavy shoes squelch southward. Marignane's lighthouse shrinks behind you. Pebbles crunch each step, scrubbing Marseilles. Fish stink from your soles. The Mediterranean sprawls ahead, blue-black and breathing. A weathered trader materializes, his tunic stitched with fish scales. Care for Sidonian glass. He uncorks a vial. It hums with Phoenician sea shanties. Made from Roman piss, they exported it to Gaul for wine decanters. You decline. He shrugs, shatters the glass. Smoke curls into a tiny trireme, sails billowing with vanished trade winds. Better hurry. Tides bringing Numidian pirates tonight, ghost crew, real cutlasses. Wave foam licks your ankles. It tastes of lost alphabets and olive pits. A fishing skiff beaches itself empty, except for squid ink sketches of emperors. You recognize Marcus Aurelius. Or is that your third-grade teacher? Historians still argue whether Sidon's glassblowers really used Tiberius, urine, or just whipped apprentices told to make it gold. Something tugs your pocket. The liquid shadow has thickened into a leech-like coil. It drips onto wet sand, spelling memento before dissolving. 3 gulls land, heads cocked like inquisitors. One coughs up a sardine, can labeled Francois eyes regrets. Best before 1525. The horizon blurs, a caravel emerges, sails patched with bullion thread. Its figurehead, a mermaid holding an abacus. Crewmen fling ledger, pages overboard they flutter like strangled gannets. Tax documents, mutters a passing monk. He's juggling 3 communion wafers that scream when dropped. Burn them properly, and you'll owe Venice exactly 0 souls. You wade deeper. The Med's chill climbs your calves like a guilty secret. That latitude whispered by the eel scale, almost here. A wave slaps your thigh. It leaves a barnacle on your knee. The shell opens. A raspy voice croaks. PSSSD. Emperor Constantine recycled Hadrian's statues into toilet seats. True story. Suddenly, a submerged hand grabs your wrist. Seaweed hair breaks the surface. A face bloated with centuries of shipwreck wine. Trade. It gurgles. Before you can answer, the liquid shadow lashes out, strangling the creature into sea foam. Naiads, scoffs the barnacle. Always pushy before tourist season. Moonlight fractures the waves. Each shard reveals a different port. Alexandria's beacon burns in one flame writhing like a tortured psalm. Historians still argue whether the pharaoh's light came from mirrors or the trapped screams of executed lighthouse keepers. You pocket a photon. It vibrates with old hymns. A raft drifts past, manned by clay jars. One cracks open, musty air escapes. Mare Nostrum's original recipe, says the barnacle. 20% briny tears, 80% Phoenician sarcasm. A jar belches, your nostril hairs curl into nautical knots. Dawn bleeds across the water. The shadow leech disintegrates into commas. They float, tiny black pauses in your story. The fish scale trader reappears, offering a conch shell. Last chance for forgotten tides. You raise it to your ear. It recites Cato's speeches backward. Carthago delenda est my ass. It finishes. Sunlight stabs the waves. The Mediterranean exhales. Waves fold into staircases, each leading to a different ending. One glows with Venetian glass chimneys, another pulses with Carthaginian war drums. That barnacle, now a pearl, whispers, "Choose the third. It's got better snacks." You step onto liquid marble it holds. The horizon peels back, revealing coastlines from erased maps. A seagull swoops, dropping a scallop with today's date carved inside. RSVPBY Moonrise. When you flip it over, the words become a recipe for pickled minotaurs. Salt crystallizes your eyelashes. The world blurs into prisms. Somewhere ahead, a lighthouse's blaze curdles into an invitation. Waves murmur your name in 17 dead dialects. You inhale, lungs burning with all the voyages you'll rewrite. The Mediterranean winks its depths flickering with the next untold lie. Salt feathers your eyelids now. The Rhone's farewell kiss turned to drowsy dust. Your feet sink lighter, the lighthouse's pulse dimming to a moth-wing flicker. Waves fold around your knees like laundered linen, cool and forgiving. Above, stars unspool threads of silted gold, weaving the Mediterranean into a lullaby. The fish-scale trader reappears, his voice frayed by tides. He offers a conch filled with honeyed vinegar. "Nightcaps for wayfarers," he rasps. You sip, it tastes of apricots and unkept promises. The shell crumbles, its whisper lingering. Even Carthage naps eventually. Sand trickles between your toes, each grain a shrunken comet. A fishing net drifts ashore, cradling wilted moonflowers. They hum the chorus of a legion's forgotten marching song. You curl a petal behind your ear. It melts into the scent of papyrus and rain. The trader wades into the waves, dissolving like salt in broth. Build no sandcastles, his echo advises. Tides savor the sport. Distant laughter ripples. A clay jar bobs near your hip. Inside, a shriveled fig murmurs, Mare Nostrum's sweetest secret. We're all just borrowed water. You let it float on, its wisdom too ripe for midnight. The barnacle on your knee yawns open. Rest, it croaks. Constantine's toilet seats can wait for dawn. Its shell seals shut, leaving a pearl of silence. Horizons soften, ports dissolve into watercolor smudges. That caravel with abacus mermaids, anchored now in myth. Even pirates' ghosts yawn into their cutlasses, dreaming of plundering sunrise markets. Your shadow leech unravels, its commas nesting in the sand. They pulse, tiny ink hearts counting your breaths. A gull drops an oyster at your feet inside. A scroll reads Sleeper's Charter. Tax exempt, you tuck it into the air. The wind files it under moonstruck. The Mediterranean hums, a wet finger circling a wineglass rim. You kneel, and the sea mirrors your face, then shows you the virgin who stayed home. She waves, her smile silt and starlight. Foam curls around your waist, not tugging, just holding. A wave gifts you an olive pit, engraved with "Thank you for not drowning today." You pocket it, the pit already snores. Dawn hesitates, sky stretched gauze thin. The raft of jars drifts past again, one cracks, releasing a cloud of drowsy midges. They spell NUNCDORMITIS, before scattering. Your eyelids lower, become theater curtains. The barnacle snores a wet lullaby. Salt crusts your lashes shut. The world dissolves into a velvet hum. Somewhere, a mermaid's abacus clicks, settling accounts. You exhale, lungs trading voyage for vapor. Darkness, when it comes, wears the Rhone's silt on its breath. You sink not drowning, dissolve.